but it might be like a minute or two behind us.
Okay. Well, we'll just start the intro and then hope that it kicks in any moment. Give it a second.
Five. Whoop, there we go.
It's still on that.
I
Okay.
had my sound on there, so
Okay.
we know that works.
One day, hey, maybe one day, Jordan, will be popular enough that someone will make us an intro. That's gonna be my hanging thing. If we're ever popular enough that someone wants to make us an intro, that would be awesome. In the meantime, welcome to the
Would be
Spur of the
awesome.
Moment podcast. I am your host, as always. I'm Justin Spurr, and I'm joined by my co-host, the incomparable Jordan. Everybody,
Howdy,
how
howdy.
how are you doing this week, Jordan?
Cold.
Yeah, we got a shit ton of snow. Let's not talk about that. It's depressing. Um, on today's show, on the docket for today, apparently there's a Canadian Law and Order. We're going to talk about that for a bit. There's some sequel series, a new Indiana Jones game. I forgot to put that in the description, and a ton more. I got a bunch of news. And then in the second half, it is book report time. Jordan's doing the 60s. He's got some stuff from the 60s. I'm doing the 70s. I got some stuff from the 70s, and maybe there's another prologue or epilogue, or I haven't decided what the name is for it yet. But that's the second half. Let's begin the first half, shall we? And let's start off with Canadian Law and Order. Jordan, they're making Law and Order Toronto. That's a thing. There's a trailer. They've already made
Really?
it. Yeah.
Really? Like, is it made by a Canadian company or
It's
is that made by
absolutely
an American?
no. It's absolutely made by the same people. It's Dick
Oh,
Wolf, baby.
oh, okay. So Toronto has just finally gotten big enough that they can like have their own show now, I
I
guess.
mean, they've always kind of. I mean, there's really interesting or
I mean,
fun.
I mean, in the eyes of America, not in the
Yeah.
eyes of
Well,
Canadians.
I don't know if it's. Oh, now that I say this, I don't know if it's a Canadian show. It might. I'm pretty sure it's American, but there is a procedural cop show about a cop who comes from the future that takes place entirely in Vancouver.
I think
It's
that's
super
made by
weird.
Americans, though.
Is it made by Americans?
I want to say that it is, but I'm not confident
Oh,
enough
interesting.
to commit.
I don't know, but the thing that made me laugh about this is it's because it's Dick Wolf. It's gonna so he's just gonna massively fuck up our criminal justice system then too, right?
I mean, yeah, definitely.
It's gonna get
Same as
everything
same
wrong about it.
same as he would if there was a British version.
Yeah, you'd be like, huh? I don't think that's allowed legally. I don't
I don't
think
think
they're.
you're allowed. I don't think you're allowed to just beat up the people that you have under your arrest, like throwing them against
I
walls
was
and
just gonna
stuff.
say, I'm pretty sure a Canadian cop can't just put a suspect through a wall. I'm almost entirely positive that's not how it. That's not how it works. What's the social
But I
commentary
mean,
gonna be?
but I mean, if it ever did happen, I could believe it in Toronto. Fuck Toronto people.
That's.
Am I right?
Yeah. It's completely one-sided. They have no idea what we're talking about.
We don't exist to them.
We don't exist. What's funny about it, though is I didn't really. I sort of. It sounds like it's gonna be a long form thing because I did kind of briefly read the what it was about, and I didn't watch the trailer because maybe if it was West Coast, who knows? Maybe on the show there'll be a Western Canadian. I don't know, but apparently, yeah, it sounds like it's more of a long form thing, which has never been Law and Order's success. They're always better when they're doing individual isolated episodes that can be resolved in a single like there when at least for me on SVU anyway and Criminal Intent whenever they did like arcs like long episode chains it was like oh my god I'm tired of this already like there's a couple of them that were like 3 or 4 parters where it was like oh he's back again and it's like I get it's supposed to represent real life or whatever but it was always like ugh
I
this is
mean,
me.
to me, the best way from the small amount of that show that I've seen, the best way that it works is where it's like the episode finishes and resolves, and like maybe a certain aspect of it comes into play like 4 or 5 episodes later, and it's like, it's right.
Yeah,
But like isn't like overpowering or overshadowing,
exactly
like not
like
a full on continuation.
I don't think those shows like I dislike it when they give the characters nemesises. It makes it feel cartoony to me. Like there's a character,
Nemesis.
yeah. Like there's a like Olivia Benson. She went through a series of episodes where she had like a nemesis, and it was really harrowing. And they're good episodes, but it's like, oh, I don't want to see this guy's face again. They're just not
Mm.
that kind of show for me. But moving on. To we didn't talk about this at all. We didn't talk about Indiana Jones game. That looks interesting.
Yeah, is it so? Okay. there's the RoboCop game, which is also in first person.
Yeah.
Is this made by the same people?
No, it's Bethesda.
No.
It's
Oh.
Bethesda. Yeah,
Oh.
it's straight up Bethesda. Yeah,
Oh.
and I don't think it's
Oh.
coming to PlayStation. I think it's exclusively Xbox. I'm pretty sure
I'm not sure,
because I
but
think
it
they've
being
got some sort of deal with Microsoft right now. I think that's why
interesting.
the Starfield went directly
I
to.
mean, the thing is that even when they say that it's only for a particular thing, sooner or later, High on Life happens and it
Yeah,
comes to PlayStation anyway.
it all
Or
come to
or
PlayStation anyway.
or I mean, or on the PlayStation side of things, for the longest while, with the Hogwarts Legacy, for example, we had our own exclusive quest, and now, apparently, from what I hear, it's going to be DLC on all the other consoles, free DLC.
Boo! It should be paid DLC. If it's gonna be DLC, I don't
Um,
mind it being DLC, but fuck them. They gotta pay for it.
I mean, I mind because if it's a thing that's supposed to be just for PlayStation, it cheapens it.
I don't mind. I don't mind the plebs having to pay to get
Especially
in
when
a
it's
little bit.
like, especially when
Kidding,
it's like
kidding.
an entire game. So like, what like I didn't like it when, for example, Kingdom Hearts stopped being just a PlayStation
Yeah,
thing. Like that was a thing that was like, otherwise, why buy a PlayStation over an
but
Xbox
but
if you can just get any console on or any game on any console? What makes that console special?
I don't think console should be special. I think it should be about. I for one am the hardware should speak for itself, not the software. There should be something in the hardware that it, like entices you, not the software. I don't really like exclusives. I don't know. That's tough because I don't like exclusives. But on the other hand, I also don't want like Nintendo games, for example, to go out to everywhere. But like the ones where they're not like mascot characters. Like yeah, I didn't like that High on Life was an Xbox only. I like that it eventually came to PlayStation, and I don't mind like the like Xbox getting first crack at it, and then we get and then back first for certain ones like ones that are like PlayStation, like a Nathan Drake, for example. I wouldn't want to see a Nathan Drake go
Or
to
God of War?
yeah, but I mean, Kingdom Hearts already played the feel, so like to put it on Xbox means nothing to me. It was already on Nintendo and PlayStation, so it's like
No, I know,
he's
but
already kind of a slut, is what I'm saying.
I didn't like it when it
Kidding,
went.
that was another joke. Don't cancel me.
I I didn't like it when it went to Nintendo. Is my point.
Yeah,
I don't think it should have.
yeah, but it already. Yeah, that's one of those franchises. I don't necessarily believe in exclusivity for software. I just don't. I think everyone should be able
I
to
do.
play. I miss the days where shit wasn't exclusive, but where the differing versions of the one you port were different. Where it was like, okay, that's the reason why you get the Xbox, like how the
Like Aladdin back in the day, how the Genesis version was different than the Super Nintendo
I was gonna
version.
get a bit more modern and say maybe like Sonic Unleashed, where the Wii U version was different, or like
Crappy, you mean?
or Soul Calibur, where each of the consoles got a different exclusive character. I like that,
Hmm.
where something differentiates. Because I never played Spawn. I never played Spawn. Always wanted to play Spawn. He looked fun. But yeah,
I I only I only got to try Yoda because I believe at the time when that came out, I had friends who had Xbox. So
yeah. I did get to try Yoda eventually because I
and then
think
we got badass Darth Vader, and
yeah,
they always wanted to come to my place and play it.
yeah.
And then that's where like yeah, if you're gonna do it that way, then like you have the smart tactic of on both consoles, you have the Game of the Year edition where you get to resell it, and then you get to have the Xbox character included.
Exactly. I mean, that's what ended
Like
up happening with
absolutely,
Soul Calibur 5. Like, if you
if
download
these
it on,
corporations were capable of like if Xbox and PlayStation were capable of coming together and being harmonized like that, sure, but they're not.
yeah. But anyway, back to the Indiana Jones game. My thing when I saw that because I saw a while ago that they had announced that there was going to be an Indiana Jones game. I didn't see who was making it, and my immediate thoughts when I think Indiana Jones in video games is A, there's never been a good one, and B, um, it's just Uncharted. It just like that's kind of as much as Uncharted was like Tomb Raider and Indiana Jones smashed into one. When you backwards engineer it, then he's just Uncharted. Like apart from the
Um,
whip of it all. So I was kind of happy to see. I was interested to see it be
that's
in first person because I was like, oh, that's
I
different.
was just gonna say that's probably why it is to try and distance
Yeah,
themselves from that. That being said, I don't mind Fallout games, and Skyrim was fun, but when you tell me that the Indiana Jones game is being made by Bethesda, it immediately gives me pause for concern because
Yeah,
I don't see him with that style, with the
with that
style that they're known
with that
for.
engine, no, it's their engine's too loosey goosey for Indiana Jones.
So
He's
like
a precise
unless
character.
unless they're gonna make like a new engine for it,
Yeah, I don't know. I would want the. It's
it
funny you said RoboCop. I kind of want the people who made RoboCop to make every like movie based first person video game now, because yeah, man, that kind of is the, for me, the not the pinnacle, but like the example that everyone should follow, because yeah, I felt like I was RoboCop, and I'm watching this gameplay. It's early, but I don't feel like I'm Indiana Jones.
no, not in the same way. I don't know. I saw it and I was like, okay, interesting, but I'm not like excited for
Yeah,
it
exactly.
necessarily. But to be fair to the game, I don't really like Indiana Jones very much. I think
No,
he's kind of boring.
I mean, yeah,
Like
no.
I like even just his movies. I mean, I think they're very overrated, and that's absolutely people are going to give me shit for that. But I just think they're all kind of okay. And
Yeah, no, yeah, no.
the
I mean,
fact that there's this like cult of not personality, but like people that are really into. I just don't get it,
yeah,
and I don't think
I
I
don't
ever
get it.
will.
I,
Um,
they're fun movies, but they're not. There's nothing.
like for me, it
They're,
comes down to I think, and again, I'm going to catch flack for this. I don't think Harrison Ford has a lot of personality, and a character like that,
oh,
not the kind of personality that I think fits with that kind of character. I
yeah,
guess is the
that.
word that I would.
Young
Um,
Harrison
like
Ford
like like
definitely does, but
like I think he works really well as like Han Solo, for example.
yeah,
But for me, like a treasure hunting character is like a Nathan Drake or like a Chris
I will agree
a,
that
a,
he has no charisma with any of his love interests. None,
no
none,
or or or
not
at
one.
all really. But
To the point that
anyways,
I Googled, I'm like, is Harrison Ford gay? Because it was just the way he kisses women is like, he doesn't seem to have any interest in it. Like he's not like,
I
there's no chemistry between any of him and his love interest. So yeah, I do get what you
um
mean. It
he's
just
just cardboard, and
it does
it's
imply a certain level of charisma that character has a certain level of charisma that he doesn't. It's very odd.
he doesn't put it out
I
anyway. I
watched
don't
those
see it.
recently and I was like, yeah,
But what I would love from the people that made that RoboCop game is I would love them to make, and I mentioned this when you saw me playing it the one time. I would love for them to make like a Terminator style game where it's like you play through the story first as the person who's trying to survive the Terminator,
yeah.
and then you get to the end and you get like a bonus mode or like a secret mode or whatever where you then play as the Terminator trying to hunt down whoever it is you're trying to hunt down, John Connor, Sarah Connor, whoever. And like in that version of the story, the Terminator succeeds, and you see the alternate ending where the Terminators win,
That'd be
and
funny.
like everything is destroyed.
I mean, I said that and Judge Dredd. Be a great
And
Judge Dredd.
I would absolutely make that where the first time you play or either the first time you play through it's in third person and like it's like a survival or you're running or whatever, and then the next mode is in first person and you're the Terminator trying to first person kill to differentiate between the two gameplay styles.
my that sound my nerve what makes me nervous about that in this hypothetical world where they make it is that sounds just too much like those shitty fucking oh, what are they? I can never remember what they're called. Isomorphic horror games or whatever. You know, the ones that are like
Dead by Daylight.
yeah, but like all the bad ones, like your Friday the 13th or your Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where it's
Right,
like
but what I'm talking about is a single player experience.
yeah, but it just I don't know. It just sounds a little. It sounds like someone could take that and do that with it. And that, I don't want. I want a single player. If we're gonna do a
I mean,
Terminator game, I don't want to play as Sarah
that
Connor.
pretty
I
much already
just want to play as
exists.
the Terminator. I want to do a first
Uh,
person action game where I'm the Terminator.
I want mine because then you don't like you go through it thinking that you won't get to play as the Terminator and you're all disappointed. And then you get to the very end and then you get to play as the Terminator and it's like, all right, this is
I
badass.
mean, that's fun, but I don't want to go through the part where I have to play as Sarah Connor. I just want to play as the Terminator. That's I don't.
I disagree.
She's not. She's not. That doesn't interest. To be fair, survival horror games where you run away from a thing never interested me. What's the point? I want to be the thing that people run from. I don't want to be the thing that runs away. That doesn't interest me. I'd much rather a solid like yeah. But to be fair, then what does the Terminator kill? It's other than chasing the one thing. So yeah. But no, yeah, Judge Dredd game. Those guys could, I think, just their way that they've captured that universe. They could make it. I knew fair. I play another RoboCop game from them.
Yeah, absolutely, I
Moving
would.
on. We're moving on to a segment I'm calling sequels. We're gonna talk about some sequels that they're doing. They're making some sequels. And to start off with, apparently they're working on Polar Express 2. They're making a sequel to the Polar Express. To my first
What?
and yeah, exactly. Why? To what end? And for
Why?
what possible reason? There's there's two notable things about that movie. That Tom Hanks plays every single character, and that it's creepy and uncanny valley like. Like technology has evolved. There's no reason for that. And what possible story reasons would you have to tell
That's more
without
my
telling the
thing
same story?
more than the technological aspect of it is just how long ago did the Polar Express come out?
2004.
So why are we doing this 20 years
20
later?
years. Holy shit! I didn't even realize that. Wow. I have no idea. Is Tom Hanks involved? What's the point? Is it up? Who's it? What's it? Is it? I mean, obviously they're gonna do it. It's about the kid's kid, but that kind of that doesn't. What does that add to this?
But again, who is this for? Is it for the 24-year-old who watched this as a kid? Is it for a kid now who has no frame of reference for the first one and this doesn't hold any emotional weight for? Who is this for?
I don't get it.
Why?
And it's
20
just like
years later.
you're not going to capture the aesthetic and look of the original because you can't. The technology has evolved so much. Either you're going to like there's a reason Bob Zemeckis hasn't done another one of these creepy like the last one he did, the creepy uncanny valley. What's the point in
Scrooge.
this? Yeah, it was Scrooge and it did terribly.
I like that one though.
No, it's not Scrooge. It's not Scrooge. It's Marcy's mom's. It's Marcy's mom's. That was the last one.
Oh, okay.
We watched that one.
Okay.
We watched that one together. We watched that as a threesome one.
A
When
threesome. Oh,
when
yeah,
I
yeah,
when I
yeah.
worked at the movie theater, yeah. Um,
That's a funny way of putting it, but yes,
yeah.
yes.
The other person might have been there as well. I don't remember. All I remember is it's clearly not very memorable.
It could have
Um,
been a quartet.
it could have been a quartet, yeah. Yeah, that was the last one, and it did terribly, and he's never tried since because animation kind of moved in the direction of being like, you know, softer and less real.
Stylized.
Yeah,
Stylized.
Thank you, stylized. Yeah, it went in the direction of being a lot more stylized, and yeah, a lot of people were asking the question like, why make cartoons that look like people, especially in a movie where you could just use people.
Yeah.
That is amusing to me, but the Polar Express didn't need to be animated. That could have been a live action movie. And
Oh,
it
absolutely.
basically is because the models look so real. So it's like, what is the so like yeah? What are you gonna do? You could have human that looked super duper real, but to what end? And then yeah, to what end with the story?
And 20 years later.
Right? I mean, to be fair, the book's a classic. To be fair,
I
the
guess,
book is a
but
classic. It was a
if
classic
you're
when we
gonna
were
call
kids.
it if you're gonna call it Polar Express 2 though, that connotates that it's following the previous movie.
Yeah, I
And
know.
it's not so much like you could if you wanted to
He
do
never made a
that,
sequel to the book.
you could just remake Polar Express
Yeah,
and do a new version of
yeah,
it, a
exactly.
more stylized version of
Because
it.
yeah,
That makes sense to
the
me.
Polar Express
Like,
does one thing. It takes a kid to Santa Claus. Like, what else
yeah,
is it gonna do? What is it gonna go through a different adventure on his way to Santa Claus? Is it gonna be the same movie but slightly different? Just what is the creatively?
yeah.
Well, it's Hollywood. Anyway, and then the second one, which I didn't take down for some reason, but is they announced that they're doing a Wizards of Waverly Place sequel.
I
Um,
saw that, and not everyone has been asked back,
and
and
not
it's super embarrassing.
yeah. Well, I mean, definitely, because I tried to see, I tried to kind of keep my eye out to see if the bitter ex-wives on the Wizards of Waverly Place podcast. I'm kidding. That's a joke. That's a
Oh,
joke.
the one that's even funnier than that for me is you remember in the show Justin's best friend?
Yeah.
How, do you know what his actor has gotten up to, which is probably why he's not going to get invited back?
I know I knew that he does the the yeah thing on the website, but does he is he actually full bore, like he shows his bits and pieces?
Oh yeah,
Oh
as I
really?
understand it, um, I maybe I'm wrong about this, but
Keep
I
it as
seem to remember
PG-13 as you can,
I
please.
seem to remember it being his information was leaked and he leaned into it
Oh, gotcha, gotcha,
uh
gotcha.
to keep it as PG-13 as we
He was
can.
doing it on the DL, and then somebody found out, and then it was like, well,
Yeah, pretty much.
I gotcha,
Um,
gotcha. So no,
at
yeah,
least as
probably not. No.
as I understand it anyway. So yeah, no, I doubt family friendly Disney wants to have
Although,
that.
the world is hypocritical, and obviously they didn't invite what's her name, the chick who plays Rachel on Boy Meets World back to Girl Meets World for those reasons. Um, Maybe they'll be hypocritical and they will. I mean, he's a character who cares if he comes back. Nobody's asking for that character to come back.
Oh, this is supposed to be like many years where like and
The
stuff later.
setup and
So
premise for it is also
it's just absolutely believable that they would just be like, I mean, yeah, no, Justin just moved on with his life.
yeah,
He's
well,
not friends
yeah.
with him anymore.
It's like the Harper and the dad.
And Alex.
I'd be interested to know what they had to say about it. But like, yeah, they don't need to come back. They should, and they probably will. I'm sure they
Well, to be
probably will
fair,
come back in a guest starring capacity.
yeah, well, yeah, that's just it. From what I understand, I believe it's the guy who plays Justin. He made a tweet or something where he's like, and there will be like recurring characters, not necessarily in the first couple episodes,
Exactly.
but
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be
so
Girl
it's
Meets
like,
World, but with wizards. It's what's gonna happen.
yeah,
And it's so
yeah,
funny because everyone's
basically.
like, "Oh, it's not gonna be the same. It's not gonna be the same." And it's like, yeah, it will be because unlike Boy Meets World, it's just gonna be like I saw someone say it's gonna be just like Girl Meets World. And like, no, it's not because the difference is Boy Meets World was a much older show on a much older network, and it was a PG to PG-13 show. And Girl Meets World went on to Disney Channel, which is a G rated station.
Yeah, they could never do the same kind of stuff that Boy Meets
Never.
World could do.
Whereas Wizards was already a Disney Channel show, so they just need to replicate what they did before, and then it'll
I
more or less be the
mean,
same show.
yeah, it won't take nearly as
But it's
much.
confusing because Selena Gomez announced it, so did David Henry. But a bunch of stuff I saw from it was that it was just it was just Justin, which was surprising to me, which sort of indicates the status of me. I don't. Yeah, that's very confusing to me. Yeah, because
Well, isn't it
he was
that
on the
that
outs with most of them, as I understood.
wasn't isn't the premise of the show that a kid shows up that Justin like he has a wife and stuff and he's moved on, and
Yeah.
then a kid shows up that Justin has to train?
Yeah, basically, Justin is the dad now, and he's given up magic to be
Well,
with.
I mean then it's just gonna be they're obviously gonna go the route of this kid that shows up as Alex's kid,
Well, here's the thing, right? So, one thing I saw,
and
I said that
that'll be how they bring Alex back
well,
in.
Selena Gomez said that she's in it, and everything I saw said that it was both her and David Henry. But then I saw other sources that said that's right. I have sources. I saw other sources that said she's only in a cameo capacity. That it's predominantly a David Henry thing. So
I mean, I could believe
she's
it,
not really
but
in it as a lead. But I think that's probably what it's gonna be. You're right. I think it's gonna be a thing of like it's Alex's kid. Because why else? Why not a random kid that shows up? That's weird. But then like
yeah.
what is Alex's
And
connection to
then
it?
that would also be where yeah she's not there on a permanent basis. Isn't there permanently.
Yeah.
She occasionally pops in to check in on her son,
My
and
question
that's
is
where
though.
like she's more of a guest star
Yeah.
capacity, but not like full guest star capacity.
Here's my guess. Here's my guess right now for what this is probably gonna be. What the details that they have real. Yeah, the kid. I think you're right. Is gonna be Alex's kid, and I'm guessing because it would be
Or it could
weird.
be Max's kid.
Is it gonna be a thing? I seem to recall they said he will have his own kids. Right. That's the thing. I think is
I
what they
think
said.
so, but
Yeah.
I
He
I
has
don't
a wife and
remember.
kids. So I'm guessing one of the kids, his kids are also going to be part of the wizarding competition. I'm guessing because unless they've somehow gotten rid of the wizarding competition, maybe that's going to be part of this. There's no more wizard competition. Um, because
I
a lot of people
mean,
point out that wait, he was the head. It feels like this new show is going to ignore details of the finale because why would Justin give up magic? That's weird. That's a weird choice for him.
well, no, it's not when you think about the fact that the same reason the same reason their dad had to give up magic. You can't marry a mortal unless you give up your
Right,
magic.
but the circumstances for Justin are different. He didn't win the wizard competition. He was gifted to become the leader of the headmaster of the school.
Right,
So you're gonna have
but
to do
rules are
a
rules.
yeah, but I mean he's the leader at that point.
He's not the leader. He's the leader of a school, not of all of wizard
And
kind.
it's very yeah. I don't know. I don't
And
believe
their
that
rules are
for that
arbitrary and
character.
stupid.
I just don't believe that for that. And I just like a wizard shows up that he had. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
Oh, the wizard showing up. The wizard showing up is absolutely going to be related to either Max or
I
Alex.
don't think we're gonna see Max. I don't even think Max is gonna get referenced. I
He might
think
get referenced by
I think
name
he'll get a
only.
name
Like
drop,
he's
and that's
off. Like
that's
it'll be like,
it.
oh, we got a postcard from your brother Max. He's off in Bermuda
Yeah.
searching for the secret city of something or
You know, I
other.
suspect there's going to be a thing of like
Some
his kids
crazy,
will also
insane
be going
thing.
through the wizard competition, and then they'll be like he'll have two kids, probably sons, and the other kid will be a daughter, like a girl. She'll be the new Alex, and then there'll be a kid who's the new Max, and then he'll have a son who's the new Justin. Guarantee guarantee you. And then that'll be the dynamic, and Justin will be the new dad, and it's gonna be Girl Meets World but for wizards.
Yeah,
I
probably.
guarantee you.
Probably. I'd be surprised if it didn't do something like that.
Yeah,
It's Disney. They're very
they're very
like
obvious.
paint by numbers.
Exactly. So moving on. Moving on from that segment, hey, those were some sequels that they're apparently doing. We're gonna move into the next segment. That's called oh man, another beloved childhood thing that's gross. Apparently, they're making the guys who made Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, are making a Pinocchio horror movie,
Of
which
course they are.
is sort of weird because Guillermo del Toro already did that, and I didn't watch it, but it won an Oscar. So like, what's the point? He did. It wasn't a horror movie so much as it was. What if Pinocchio was more upsetting? Um, and apparently it was good. I didn't get a chance to watch it. Um, but yeah, it's just funny that these are the Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey guys because they recently when all the Steamboat Willie, all the Steamboat Willie stuff, the horror stuff was being announced. They were like, "Oh, people shouldn't do that," and it's kind of like, "But you guys did it.
Oh,
You were the
kettle,
first ones."
meat, pot.
Right? It's like, yeah, that's a tad hypocritical from the guys who made Blood and Honey. You know the other ones? You know the Grinch one? That one was actually kind of fun. Yours is bad. Like I don't want to say good. I don't like using the word good. But theirs is significantly less creatively bankrupt than yours was. Yours was like you literally did what they did. You ran out the second it went royalty
Public
free,
domain.
public domain. Thank you. And you literally, if you Google scary Winnie the Pooh costume, it's literally like before the movie came out, it was literally the first thing that popped up. Like literally. Now it's the movie, but before it was literally it was like an eBay. Like I saw someone make a joke about it. I think it was John Oliver, and I literally, yeah, no, sure enough, it's the first one. Speaking of shit that taking shit and making it unpleasant. Apparently they've announced they're making there's a Chuck E. Cheese television show that's in development currently.
But what?
Now
Why?
I thought. Okay, well, first, what do you think this would be? Before I tell you what it is, what do you think it would be?
A children's educational show?
Wow, you went in a vastly different direction than I did, because of the family friendly characters. I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, because it's a place you take your children.
That's very funny. So my thought was
Like I kind of
that's
picture like
completely different
you
from.
remember those
We
you
went in
remember those
very different
old like
directions.
you remember those like old Ronald McDonald like Treasure
Uh,
Island cartoon kind of thing?
yeah, I know what you
That's
mean.
what I that's what I picture.
I mean, that's so fascinating. We went drastically different directions. See, my first thought was Five Nights at Freddy's is popular right now, and the movie just made a bajillion fucking dollars, and this is like a self-fulfilling like full circle moment, and they're gonna make a scary it's like a scary horror show about the animatronics like attacking people, like
Well,
a
see, the
knockoff
reason
Five
why
Nights at Freddy's. I thought that's what
the,
they were gonna do.
the reason why I don't see them doing that is because um and I know this because of like food theory and stuff. They did some stuff on this where as I understand it, they're actually discontinuing a lot of the old animatronics
Yes,
from
that's
these
true.
restaurants and replacing them with like cutesy television screens that had the cutesy characters on them and stuff. So it seems like they're trying to distance themselves from the old animatronics. So to make an entire movie around that seems counterintuitive for what they kind of seem like they're
Show.
trying to do.
I mean, yeah, but again, why would you not capitalize on something that's
Because
that's incredibly popular?
you don't want to attach yourself to
Yeah,
that.
I guess, but I like I said, it's not the first time.
I'm not saying that's the decision I would make. I would absolutely lean into it and like bank on it and like change a restaurant theming like entirely from being child friendly to being leaning
Oh well,
into
no,
the
no, no.
horror
I'm
element.
not talking about the restaurants. I'm talking for the show. The
I
show.
realize that. I'm saying I would completely rebrand if I was them. Use the
Um,
show to rebrand, make a movie to rebrand,
um,
fully lean into it.
because it's not the. I mean, they had the.
But no,
It's
in
not the
terms of
first time you
reality,
being like it's a
I would
child.
expect I would expect them to think it like do a child show.
It's funny because you say child show because I mean, it's not that there is a movie out there. There's a bunch of characters. They're called the Banana Splits Gang, and there was a popular TV show I think in the '60s or '70s, and it was a children's show. It was like a variety. I'm pretty sure like a variety, and it had costume characters and whatever children's show, and they made a movie about it like set decades later. It was called the Banana Splits movie, and in that movie, the characters from that show, the Banana Splits gang, basically do a Five Nights at Freddy's, from what I understand. So that's where I'm like, you could take the Chuck E. Cheese characters and just do a Five Nights at Freddy's. That's what I thought they were gonna do with this. But what this actually is, apparently, is it's gonna be basically Squid Games, basically, where it's gonna be a bunch of
That's
adults
weird.
and I guess like reality style, where it's gonna be a bunch of adults all playing big, like big Chuck E. Cheese games, competing for tickets that they will
Okay.
be able to put towards prizes.
Uh, uh, that's a choice.
It's a choice where I'm like, I can't believe no one's thought of this. Like, it's funny you say kids show because that's what that makes me think of. That makes me
Well,
think
that
of
kind of that if it
Uh-Oh,
was
for example,
kids,
if you remember
yeah, like
Uh-Oh.
if it was kids doing it, then it would definitely make me think of that, or like a kid's version of Wipeout or something.
Yeah.
Um,
One of those style of reality game shows.
yeah,
I know what
yeah.
you mean. Yeah.
Like I could see it. It's a weird choice to me.
Yeah, the idea is like, oh, when you go to Chuck E. Cheese, everyone becomes a kid or something to that effect. That's the sort of the log line for this. Yeah, I don't.
Okay,
I saw that. And
I
I immediately was like, "There's no way this isn't a Five Nights at Freddy's knockoff, right?" It's not, apparently. All right, that's weird.
okay.
That's a
That's a
choice.
choice.
Um. Oh, no, we don't want that.
That's
Oh,
a that's a decision.
did you hear about how they are, or the guys who made Game of Thrones, they were really, really mad at the Last Jedi because their Game of Thrones movie, or their Star Wars movie that they were gonna make but that got canceled. It was gonna be called The First Jedi, and it was gonna be about like the formation of like the Jedi, where they came from, the first lightsaber and all that jazz. And I'm like, huh, that actually sounds interesting.
That has potential,
Right?
depending on how it's done.
Right?
But like I could see that almost as like a samurai style movie.
Right?
Like the building of the lightsaber, like it's old. Samurai. I hesitate to use Old West, but like you know what I'm the kind of one that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Samurais are good.
I
It's
could.
good. That's a good description. Yeah,
That's how I could see that style being.
yeah. Old West samurai style movie. Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
fun. Um, my
It would
thing,
be
my thing about
interesting.
Star Wars
It
is
would
I'm
be
always like more
the
lightsabers,
important
not less.
thing. The important thing is it would be the marriage of having being able to have lightsabers and like the creation of that and be different
Exactly.
and not just the same old shit over and over again. Or what you
Exactly.
could even do because they had the idea that the cross guards were really old. You could have it be like a medieval style thing.
That also would be fun. The important part is it would be
Um
different.
Different
It would be
and
different.
unique.
It would be different. They're re-releasing Godzilla minus one in the United States, but it's gonna be in black and white. Which, hey man,
It
I guess because I've watched so many black and white movies that I can't stand black and white. I don't understand what the point is in putting out a movie that you already put out, but this time it doesn't have color. What does it add? What does that add? I don't. Is that me being like, I don't know what the
a-
word is. Ignorant,
ageist,
ageist.
ageist,
Yeah, I don't know. Is that like what
elitist.
artistically does that add to the, other than some shots? Like, I mean, I like black and white photography. I like the occasional thing in black and white, but like, it's just what is the point? The movie already exists. It's like when Zack Snyder
It
put out the
takes me
black and
out of
white.
it.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, the black and white version of Justice League. What's the point in this? It's just to be black and white. Like, what does it add?
Like for me, and this is just my opinion, I'm just, spouting stuff here, but for me, when I'm trying to make a creative piece, I'm trying to bring people into my reality and make them feel as if they're a part, like as if the screen is a window
Yeah,
which they are seeing into this world. I
exactly,
don't see in black and white. So
exactly.
when a thing is in black and white, I don't feel like I'm in that world.
Right?
It pulls me out of it.
I can handle it when it's like a movie from the 30s and 40s and they don't have the technology to do
Yeah.
color,
Yeah.
or if
Like
it's a
when they didn't have a
deliberate
choice.
choice. Like if you're making the movie and you've made the movie in black and white and it's
So if
meant,
you're making it like in the style of like a
yeah,
1940s and it's meant to be and evoke
or
that kind of thought,
you
but
want to like in Asteroid City, you want to differentiate it as a separate reality from the reality of the main story,
yeah, or like if
or
it's supposed to be the past, for
yeah, that's another
example.
that's another way too. Yeah, yeah.
The
If
past
it's
isn't black and white, you can't change it.
like, yeah, if there's a deliberate artistic choice and when you're making the movie for it to be in black and white, fine. But to take a thing that was in color and then put it into black and white, I don't see the point. What does that add?
Yeah. No, I don't get it.
Maybe this is one of my classic hot takes. I don't know, but like it just
It's a
seems
spur
pointless.
it's a spur of the moment hot take because we both agree on it.
Yeah, I don't get it. Okay.
I don't.
I think see I pulled up a bunch, but most of these are just like She-Hulk. The Tatiana Maslany. She doesn't think that She-Hulk season 2 is going to happen because the first season was so expensive. To which I say good. Not because I
I
thought that
mean,
that show was bad, but mostly because I don't think that character needs a second season. I think so many of these characters who got their own shows don't need follow-ups. Like a Moon Knight, for example, put him in other shit. Like he could be a
uh
character that just shows up at other shit. Good
it's
enough.
funny because I've heard a few things in regard to the whole She-Hulk thing. I heard that there was issues. She was apparently I don't know if it was Disney or her or whoever wanted her to be in Deadpool 3 and Ryan Reynolds was like no,
Really?
basically. Yeah. Like he absolutely put his foot down on it and did not want her to be in it. I don't know if it's because of the actress or the character or what. Like I don't know if he didn't want to have two like world breaky look at the screen like
Probably.
your flow you're cutting into my flow kind of thing in one movie like it would be too much. I don't know
I
what the
suspect probably.
justifications,
I suspect
but
probably that. Mostly
but
because if you have a character, if you have one character that can break the fourth wall, that's fine. The audience doesn't question it. But the second you have two characters that break the fourth wall, then you then have to explain how they're capable of breaking the fourth wall. That's probably it. It
yeah,
would be too
it
much. I agree. It would be too
yeah.
much. That's not the
And
right movie for her.
I think that that was more the probably the justification of why he didn't. But I mean, we also have to address the big fat elephant in the room. Is part of the reason why they're probably not making a second season is because of all the whiny people who are like, wow, wow, I don't like She-Hulk.
Maybe, but I mean,
Like, I'm
Marvel
not
has
saying that's
never done that
not
before.
saying not saying that's entirely the reason. I'm just saying it was probably a thing they thought of.
Probably, I think probably yeah. That coupled with how expensive it was to produce that show, I mean,
Yeah.
it's an entirely CGI character for. I mean, not all of it, but a good portion of it. And I think I just the way that show ended, it as much as I love the jokey joke ending, you can't continue off of that because then you have to answer too many questions of what is reality and what is not reality. That show wrote itself into a corner that it can't do a second season. What is it going to do in a second season? That is a
I
character
mean,
that just
not unless you just flat
have
out
her
just
show up in
you
other
don't
things.
address it.
Yeah,
Like that's
but
the only way you could do it is like a very first moment of the like during a recap or whatever where she's talking to sitting on a bench talking to an old lady or something telling her the story, and that's the overarching framing device of that season is she's sitting there telling her this story or whatever, really Forrest Gump it and make a joke about how they're Forrest Gumping it, and then have her like very first thing as she's doing the recast of everything that happened last season, have her look right at the camera and be like, "Yeah, that all happened, and no, we're not going to address it."
I mean, no, yeah, no, that doesn't sound
Like that's the
remotely
only way.
interesting to
That's the
me.
only way you could do it, and I don't think
No,
that would be
no,
great.
thank you.
But
No, she's a character that I mean, she's gonna show up. I guarantee you, she's gonna show up in Captain America 4 because they're doing Red Hulk. Mark Ruffalo, I'm pretty sure, is also in it. Like they're gonna side. I mean, it sort of sounds like they're side building into a World War Hulk movie, and it's Red Hulk doing the World War Hulk this time.
mm,
What it sounds like it's building to. I still think they should do it where it's Mark Ruffalo's Hulk breaks free and he goes back to being regular Hulk. And that's my thing with She-Hulk is she's just a little too like it's too much Smart Hulk. We need to do away with Smart Hulk. They keep saying they're gonna. They need to. I think
I hope they do.
I truly believe it's they're just kind of waiting until they can get the deal to expire so they can finally do a full bore Hulk movie. I think that's why they've been kind of keeping him in sort of stasis, like
Limbo.
limbo, where they can be like, yeah, we're finally going to do that Hulk movie.
Yeah, I mean, because Mark Ruffalo definitely wants to do
Oh, for
one.
sure. They all do.
So,
They all want to do it. But
um,
it's weird, though, because, yeah, obviously with the Kang stuff, what Avengers 5 is going to be. And number one, it's changed back to Avengers 5. I never understand why they give these things titles preemptively. They never stay the way they are. But it's switched back to Avengers 5, and they're rediscussing what it's going to be. And apparently they're going to reshift Kang and the Secret Wars into just being the Beyonder and all sorts of rumors.
I mean, what Avengers should be is Secret Wars, and it should be like a multiversal thing where they can bring back some of past people for one
Oh
last
yeah,
go.
I maintain Secret
Like
Wars.
you can have Robert Downey Jr. back for one movie because
Yeah.
it's not actually our Robert Downey Jr. It's a different Robert Downey
Well,
Jr.
what people are like is like, oh, I don't want Secret Wars to become a one big like, oh, it's a who's who of cameo fest. No, that's exactly what it should be. That's
That's what it should
exactly
be.
what it should be. It should be wall to wall cameos. Every time there's not a cameo, you should be like, when's another cameo coming? Like, it should just be as many people who will come back and put on a stupid superhero costume as you could possibly fit into
Everything
one
from
movie.
Jessica Alba for
Yeah,
as
Jessica.
Mrs. Fantastic,
Yeah.
uh,
To
to to
Ben
to
Affleck
whoever
as
the dude was,
Daredevil.
yeah, or what's his name who wanted to be Iron Man,
Oh, Tom Cruise.
uh, Tom
Tom
Cruise's
Cruise, yeah.
Iron Man.
Every Jane Foster, like all the characters who were definitely She-Hulk, all the ones who are definitely not coming back for another thing. By the way, I'm going to say this again: Natalie Portman is not going to do another Thor. Like, I don't know what
Other
can.
no other than she might show up in this as Lady
Yeah, she's
Thor,
gonna
for
show up in this
example.
as Lady Thor, and then that's gonna be, and then that's the same thing for Chris Hemsworth. I know that I keep hearing they're gonna make Thor 5. Don't make Thor 5, please don't make Thor 5. Like I'm begging
No,
you,
he's
don't make
his
Thor 5.
story is kind of done. He can just kind of exist and be
Yeah,
in other
have
things.
him pop in as a cameo in a Secret Wars, and that's it. That's
Like
it.
whenever Chris Evans wants a quick payday, let him pop into one of these movies for an hour-long session, make $100,000, and go home.
Like make it to Secret Wars, and then that's it. That's it. That's the finale. No more MCU. I'm not saying no more Marvel stuff. I'm saying no more MCU. End the MCU there. That's the big series finale. Bring everyone back. Bring Robert Downey Jr. Bring all the characters you killed off. Who bring them back for like a 2-minute scene. Pay them $1 million. to be there on a green screen set for a day for a couple hours and get everyone in there and then just end the whole thing. And then from there on out, do single unconnected movies that are more concerned and focused with being good movies, and then maybe one day go back to the interconnected universe thing. But like, step aside and let DC have a crack at it for now. Is what I would say.
No, I would say just step aside and not let anyone step in the role. Let's just go
No,
back to saying, let's just generally, DC tried to do the connected universe thing, fell flat on their face. No, don't do the interconnected stuff again. Just walk before you can run
yeah.
on all fronts.
Focus on just making solid, good movies that aren't just concerned with setting up the next. But more importantly, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I thought the MCU should have ended at Endgame. I don't think that we should be talking about Phase 4 and 5. I think we should be talking about individual. Like, yeah, imagine if they had made Moon Knight and it was just a solid, good movie, and nobody asked or bothered to question whether or not it was part of the overall. Like, that'd be so like, oh, it's so good. Like
I
people
mean,
would be
if
into
I was
that.
Marvel, what I would do is I would just shake the Etch-a-Sketch clean, let it all go back to phase one again, if you will. Not necessarily start over now, but do, like you said, do singular movies, and then in 5, 10 years, when they finally own the rights to all of their characters again, and can do what DC should have done from the beginning, but didn't. Start your new MCU universe when you have control of all the characters and just do whatever
Yeah.
you want.
No, see, I'm completely no end of MCU.
But, but
No more MCU. Like
but to
done.
be fair,
No bringing it
I'm
back.
saying I'm saying that's like 5, 10 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, okay, but even then, no. To me,
Nah.
I mean, to be fair, by the time Secret Wars comes out, it will be 5, 10 years from now. But no, Secret Wars should just end it, end the whole thing. Like
Ah,
to me,
I disagree.
this instead of what is
I
going to
agree for
happen.
now. I agree for now. I just don't think forever.
I well, at least 20 years, 20 to 30 years. I would be in 20 to 30 years.
No.
I not enough to reshape, to unshape or to shape the movie industry into something else less impacted by it. Then maybe because right now I'm sick to death of the discussion, and I would like the discussion to end. Yeah, to be fair, I thought it should have ended with Endgame. Like I think they need to go back to solo movies that are not connected. No more Avengers. Just do a Spider-Man movie. Just do a Superman movie. You know what I mean? Like, don't do a Superman movie that's concerned with being a Justice League movie. You know, like, just do a or same thing with Spider-Man. Just do a Spider-Man movie. I think we are gonna move on to book reports because I think we've been doing this for an hour. If I've been keeping track of time. We're gonna move on to book reports because book reports gonna take a while. I actually didn't use all the stories this week. That's incredible. Good. New Year's was rough. Anyway, before we move on to book reports, it's sponsorship spot time. This is the spot where if you would like to sponsor the show, you're welcome to. We will sell anything, not anything, within reason. We will sell your product. Jordan, demonstrate. Once again.
Hey, buy a thing.
No, that's too much. That's too much. I promise that's the last time I'm going to do that bit. But you can contact the show. We'll talk about how to contact the show at the end. And yeah, in the meantime, this podcast is brought to you by the Arate Podcast Network or aratemedia.org. If you go to aratemedia.org right now, not only can you listen to this podcast, you can listen to many other podcasts, all sorts of different ones about wrestling, about musicals, I think it's about music. It's quite they're all good.
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps. There's a Goosebumps one. There's all sorts of great podcasts for almost every need. And if you've ever wanted to make your own podcast, you can contact Jake through aratemedia.org, and he will help you out with that. He's a great resource. The whole network is really great. They're super cool people, and they're totally worth joining up if you have a podcast idea. And if you're too nervous to message him, you can always contact one of us. We will help you out. aratemedia.org. That's ARETE media.org. Go check them out. Totally worthwhile. Okay, before we get into the book reports proper, last week we begun them with a prologue. This week we're going to begin them with an epilogue, as I do a follow-up to previous week's movies that Jordan selected, Superman. I watched Superman the movie because I wasn't sure if I'd seen it or not. And I'm going to be honest with you, Jordan, I'm still not sure I've seen it. I had seen it before today because there's like scenes in it where I'm like, no, I definitely remember this. And then there's other bits where I'm like, I don't remember this. So I'm just gonna knock it out real quick here. Now, previously I had said that I fucking hate Batman Returns. I know that's a well I keep going back to. But in contrast to how much I dislike Batman Returns, I really like Superman the movie. This movie is so good. And Christopher Reeve, it truly is the best Superman movie. And Christopher Reeves is Superman. It's a little funny that he doesn't do any of the emotional lifting because there's another actor who does all the sad bits. But like in terms of like just being Superman, he is Superman. And it's so wild and funny how much of your movie that you watched last week, Man of Steel, and I've been watching Smallville, how much those take from Superman Returns. Superman the movie, I should say. There's one speech that Jonathan Kent gives to Clark about you were sent here for a reason, I'm not sure what it is, what not, that they literally do word for word on Smallville. Like, that's how...
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, just straight word for word. And a thing I really liked about it, a thing that I think that a lot of modern superhero movies are missing, that they need to bring back, is... And this is, okay, why I love Superman the movie. Why I think it's the best Superman movie. And maybe, and this might be a bold statement, the best superhero movie I've seen in a while. Because there's a really important scene in the middle once he becomes Superman. It's sort of funny because it's like he goes through this whole thing in the beginning where it's like this really long prologue. Like, it's funny that you're the Man of Steel, you're like, oh, that has a really long 30-minute prologue. This also has like a 30-minute prologue, except for half of mine is him as a kid. And so, yeah, he's just a completely different actor. And then he goes off to create the Fortress of Solitude, all of which is almost exactly the same as the way it is on Smallville, which is sort of crazy. And he trains with Jor-El for 12 years. And then he's just Superman now. So there's no like moment of him where he's slowly learning. Nope, he knows how to fly. Like, Jor-El basically spends 12 years downloading like a shit ton of knowledge of everything into his brain, basically. And
efficient.
Yeah. So it's so funny that like I gave Man of Steel shit for being like, there's no moment where you see him because in the original there isn't either.
So what you're saying is Space Daddy shows up.
Yeah.
And
I kept making that joke. I was like, it's Space Dad.
He teaches him everything he needs to know.
He's Space Dad. Yeah.
I'm your space stepmom.
Yeah, no, there's no Space Stepmom. There is Space Dad.
I'm your space dad.
So there's a really important scene that after he shows up and he saves Lois Lane, and it's so funny because everything Superman does in this movie is not really that impressive of a feat. Like, he saves Lois Lane from a helicopter and everyone cheers him on. Like, but it's like, for Superman, if you know Superman, it's just a helicopter. Like, it's not a ton of weight. Like, the amount of shit he does in this, like, that didn't require much effort from him for the amount they're cheering for him.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's a whole sequence that... Okay. Why I love this movie. I keep getting distracted. Why I love Superman, the movie. And what I feel like most superhero movies are missing is there's a scene of him just being Superman. Like, that's all he's doing. Is he's flying around the city and he's just stopping. It's like a 4 or 5 minute montage of him just stopping random crimes.
Nice.
Yeah, he flies around. He lands at one point and he lands on a building. And there's this guy. He's climbing up a building trying to break it in. He's like, and he's just standing there, like standing on the building with his arms crossed. He just looks down at him. And the guy's like, ah! And he freaks out, he falls back, and then Superman flies down and catches him and leaves him with the cops. And there's a bunch of scenes that are just kind of like that. There's another moment where, like, there's this little girl and her cat stuck in the tree, and Superman flies down, saves the cat, and then flies away. And it's kind of a weird moment because she's like, oh my god, thank you, sir. And she walks in, and her mom's like, Why were you outside? He's like, oh, the cat was in the tree, stuck in it. A man flew down and saved him for me. He's like, I told you not to tell lies. It's like, whoa, that is,
It was
whoa,
a different time, Justin.
whoa. But yeah,
Um,
and then there's all these scenes of him just being Superman, and I'm like,
um,
that's what these modern we need scenes of the superhero just being the superhero.
well, it sounds like the deleted scene from Far From Home, I think it is,
Yeah.
where Spider-Man stops the bank robbery. He's like, "You're not the Avengers."
Oh no,
Like it
that's an actual
sounds.
scene. That's in Homecoming. That's an actual scene in the
Is that?
movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
is that?
yeah.
Is
You're thinking of the deleted scene from No Way Home, where he stops the guy who he thinks is stealing the bike, and he flips him upside down, and that was the scene that his brother filmed that got deleted.
maybe I'm conflating the two.
The one where
But either way, the scene that I was talking about was the Avengers one, where I'm like, it's just him being a superhero.
yeah, the superhero movie Spider-Man in particular needs more. I want a movie that's almost entirely just that, like just this, like there's no Peter Parker nonsense. There's none of that. It's just him being a superhero, and this movie does kind of balance it reasonably well. Of being like, oh, here's Clark, and he's so convincing as Clark Kent that even I started to forget that he was the same person. Like there's a moment where he's talking to Lois Lane, and she's saying, "Oh, my friend Clark said this," and he's like, "Oh, what did he say?" And there was a brief moment where I forgot he wasn't the one who said it. He was just that believable. I'm like, oh yeah, I see why people don't get that Clark Kent is automatically Superman now. I get it. Like, the performance is really quite good. And yeah, I don't think we've had a Superman that's really been maybe the one on the CW. He's pretty good.
The one on the CW has definitely been the best version of Superman live
Yeah,
action
I
that
mean,
I've
Brandon
ever
Routh is
seen.
pretty great, but he's basically just Christopher Reeve's Superman. So it's like,
I mean, that's who he's trying to be.
yeah. And the only thing I didn't like, and I love this movie, but the one thing I didn't like, I didn't care for Lex Luthor. It's so funny that people are like, oh, um, uh, Jesse Eisenberg is just doing a take on Gene Hackman, the version of Lex, because they're basically the same. His plan is a real estate scheme, like that's he's like, oh, I'm perfectly willing to murder an entire city to get what you want, and then his evil plan is to just do a real estate scam, and it's just like, what? And he's I don't know how to describe it. They want you to think he's a super genius, but his sidekicks are so bumbling and idiotic that it's like he's more like the Joker. He's more like Jack Nicholson's Joker than what I think of when I think Lex Luthor. It's like he figures out these things, like he figures out that kryptonite, that Superman is weak from kryptonite just by being like, well, the planet exploded, so stuff came from that planet, so he's obviously weak to it. It's like, what? How did you come to that conclusion? It's just like he works
That's a
out
leap
all
of
this.
logic.
Yeah, there's all these moments of him just leaping, or he just decides he hates Superman for no real reason. He's just like, I just hate Superman. I hate what he stands for. And it's like, yeah, I like it on Smallville when it's like, okay, like I'm really hoping for Legacy that there's a reason why him and Superman don't like each other. Here it's just kind of like they don't like each other because Lex Luthor and Superman don't like each other. Like that's just the reason. And it's super weird because it's funny how we have this thing where we set up the next one at the end of the movie, because this one sets up the next one at the beginning of the movie, because the beginning of the movie opens up with Zod, and you're like, oh, he's gonna fight Zod. This is the one where he fights Zod, and then Zod's just not in the movie. It's him fighting Lex Luthor. But I will say, to wrap up how much I liked Superman Returns. I really like Superman the movie. I mean, I don't know why I keep wanting to say Superman Returns. Superman the movie, I really liked it. I hated Lex's evil plan. I thought it was dumb. But the one thing I did like, okay, this is what I will say. I didn't like the climax, the entire back half of it. The ending is crazy rushed, despite being an almost 2.5 hour movie. The ending is like they got to the ending and they were like, shit, how do we shit? Because Lex Luthor this is the one where Superman flies back in time, basically. and
Oh yeah.
it's really confusing and it's not explained well. He just gets like basically Lex Luthor's plan succeeds and he blows up California and causes a bunch of earthquakes. Um, and Lois is gone to this dam to investigate basically Lex Luthor buying up all this land for this real estate scheme. And she gets stuck and caught in her car. And there's this really kind of upsetting scene of her slowly being buried to death. And Superman's trying to stop the Lex Luthor plan. And he stops it. He stops them. Or he doesn't stop the missile. He raises the San Andreas fault so it's even again. So all the earthquakes stop. But there's still like there's all these earthquakes kind of still happening. And so he's like, oh, I've saved the day or whatever. And he hears Lois Lane like dying basically. And he goes and he tries to save her. And he doesn't get there in time. And she dies. And he freaks out. And then a big thing that Jor-El tells him early in the movie is, oh, you're not allowed to interfere with human history. And so he does this thing where he gets really mad and then he flies around the planet a bunch. But you don't see the planet spinning backwards. The planet stays stationary. He just does it and then he stops and then he does it again. And then he goes and he saves her from the car right before it starts to get crushed. But it's not explained. Oh, so wait, did he go back and prevent Lex Luthor from launching the missiles? Like, what exactly did he stop? Did he change? Like, you just introduced time travel into this and you're not explaining any of this. It just kind of feels like you're like, shit, I need an ending. And then he takes Lex Luthor and the one of his henchmen and takes him to jail because the girl decided to help Superman last minute, so he didn't take her to jail. But it's just like, the ending of this feels really rushed. The only element of it I liked until they did the time travel bit was I enjoyed how Lex Luthor succeeded, and it was just about Superman cleaning up the mess. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting, different version of a climax. It's not just a big punch. But then, yeah, they did the time travel thing, and they're like, this is ridiculous.
Hackneyed.
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, man, more superhero movies need to be more like this. Less concerned with fighting a big bad guy at the end and fighting a guy who looks like has similar powers to you but looks slightly different. Like, you know,
I mean, the problem is that
you get to be the superhero.
the problem is that Hollywood is lazy, and so what's the easiest way to resolve a superhero movie? Giving him a thing to beat at the end,
I
and
know.
the bigger the thing, the more that the audience's chimpanzee brain goes like, "Ooh, big thing got beat."
Right? But I mean, you want a movie. Or for me, I want a universe. It's like part of why I like comics is because you don't need to tell me that Superman and Batman exist in the same universe when I'm reading a Super or Batman comic. I understand that he does because he casually shows up every once in a while. Like, I don't understand, and you can't even give me like it's a budget thing. It can't cost that much money to get a guy on there. I guess maybe at $1 million a guy, but still, like that's what I want. I like my favorite moments in early MCU are when they're like, oh, Tony Stark built this thing. That way you know that Tony Stark exists in the universe. That's what I want from this. I want a world where the superhero, you understand how the superhero fits into this world. And with this one, this is where he's just starting to. I'd almost be interested in watching the other three because I hear they're bad. But yeah, that's my epilogue. It was very fascinating to see how similar Man of Steel is to this movie up to a point. I will say the one thing that that bugged me, well, not bugged me, but it bugs me retroactively. Where in this one, Jonathan Kent dies because Jonathan Kent dies in most versions of Superman's story. He dies of a heart attack, which is the same as on Smallville. And the lesson for Superman is supposed to be that he can't save everyone. He has these superpowers, but he can't save every single person. That's the lesson. And in Man of Steel, you have that scene where he lets Jonathan Kent die, and that's supposed to be the moment where he learns that lesson. And it just goes to show how fundamentally Zack Snyder doesn't understand Superman, because he very much could have saved him in that moment.
That's not like
the way to teach that lesson.
That's not like a thing that he couldn't stop. Like if Zack Snyder had wanted to have like a terrible real world equivalent of that kind of scenario, he would have had it where he died of cancer that he got from Clark's X-ray vision.
Yeah, that would have worked. That would have been dark and upsetting, and then it at least made sense. But then again, the argument is Clark could have stopped that, but maybe not X-raying his dad in the chest so many times. But I do get your point. I
But
do get what you
but
said, though.
he didn't know that it was giving
Yeah,
him the cancer.
yeah. But yeah, that's where I'm like, oh yeah, that's where there's so that's one of those moments where I'm like,
It was the first thing I thought of.
Zack
Okay, come
Snyder
on,
doesn't
give me
understand Superman, and
give
it's
me a
just.
little bit of credit
But
there.
yeah, like now from now on, yeah, now every Superman movie I'm ever seen, this is now the gold standard because it's the gold standard. It's the best Superman movie. And it's not
Arete
great.
Media. Arete Media says, "Don't get me started on how Jonathan Kent died in Man of Steel. So stupid,
Oh, so dumb. That movie's
so
bad.
dumb. That movie is bad.
The
It's
movie is
it's very
bad.
bad." Did he fully hear how I feel about that movie? Please reference last week's
Yeah,
podcast.
last week's podcast. So, with that, let's move on to your book reports, Jordan. Um,
So,
how would you like to do this? You could present it in any way you see fit. We're letting the
we're
wheels
gonna
off a little
do
bit.
what I have seen, and then we'll go to what I haven't seen. Um, so for me, we have to time travel back to the '60s,
Oh
which
yeah.
was
Sorry. Hold on, real quick. If you're just tuning in now, book reports are the '60s and the '70s. Jordan's doing the '60s. Sorry, I forgot to do an intro. Go ahead.
um have to time travel back to the '60s, and we will talk about my first one, which Chim Chimney Chim Chimney Chim Chi Chiru. You sit right there. I've got a movie for you.
How long have you been sitting there for?
Um, since I decided that I was going to do this.
Okay.
I've been trying to think of a rhyme that would work.
Okay. Okay.
You took the wind out of my sails a
I
little bit
know. I
there.
know. I intentionally did it because I knew it would be funny.
Um, but so Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins,
First,
everybody.
first, first Mary Poppins about a family. For those who don't know what Mary Poppins
Who
is,
doesn't know what Mary
uh,
Poppins is?
young kids maybe
Maybe.
young whippersnappers, about a family who the dad is too engrossed in his work at the bank, and the mother is off not being a mother and trying to do stuff with the women's suffrage movement. Um, and
Feminism,
the
am I right?
feminism.
Feminism, am I right? How dare they want the right to vote? That was a
Uh,
joke. That was a joke. Please
uh,
don't cancel me.
Arete says, "No, son, don't run faster than sound in the middle of a tornado in a way that no one would see. Throw me in a ditch and then run around the planet behind everyone before you can see. Let me die."
I mean, to be fair, in that movie, Jonathan Kent is a sociopath who is willing to let the children of the people he grew up with die. So
I mean, so it explains why Clark is also a sociopath.
yeah, who's willing to just let people die. George, continue on with Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins, happy, fun, whimsical, chim chimaroo. Uh, um, Dad, not great. Typical 1960s dad. Very much reminds me of the dad from Peter Pan, even just in terms of style, the animated Peter Pan.
I can see what you were saying there.
Um, and then a young witch. I mean maid. I mean nursemaid. I mean fairy godmother. I mean whatever she's supposed to be. Shows up, Mary Poppins, and can do magic. She has a bag, which can just pull things out of mirrors, lamps, anything she wishes. She's magic and she's a witch, and I will die by that statement. Anyway, moving on.
Keep that statement in your brain because when we get to mine, I have a point I want to make. But just keep that in your
Um,
brain.
so what can be said about Mary Poppins? It's fun. It's cute. Even now, like as I was watching it, it just brought a smile to my
I,
face.
I,
Like,
I'm going to be talking about special effects a bit today because the special effects in that movie are astonishing.
oh, for the time, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me when I watch movies from a time gone by. Is I always have to be like, I'm watching this from the perspective of a person living in the 1960s. And the bit where they go to the cartoon world with the penguins,
Yeah.
for reasons that we'll get into later, looked up the technology that's involved in that, and it's pretty impressive. We're gonna talk about it more when we get to my stuff, because it's a bit longer, I think, in mine than it is yours. But
the
it's still impressive. It's pretty seamless.
the entire history of the making of Mary Poppins is fascinating for those who don't know. uh the author of it, as I understand it, contrary to what the movie, the biopic Saving Mr. Banks would have you believe,
That's funny. You're like, I
um,
want to watch that to find
didn't.
out the true story.
I said to, I believe my words were
That's
to
funny.
hear, like, to see more of the history,
Yeah, that's not a
um,
movie to do that.
one one side of the history.
Yeah,
Um, but no, as I understand it, she didn't love the portrayal of Mary Poppins. She
she
thought
did
it was
not.
too kind.
Yeah, yeah. She thought that.
Um,
From what I understand, are you familiar with Nanny McPhee?
the British show, I believe.
No, no, no. It's another movie about a
Oh,
magical.
I might have heard of it, but I don't think I've ever
Um,
watched it.
but to my knowledge, she's more supposed to be more like Nanny McPhee. But to be fair, that's the idea of a stern British nanny. Is basically what she was supposed to be. Julie Andrews was too pretty, I think, is what she said specifically.
That and the cartoons.
Yeah, she didn't like the
Didn't
cartoons.
didn't like the cartoons.
And the
But
music, she hated the music too. I mean,
she also didn't like Dick Van Dyke.
no, she didn't like his name. I think
Uh,
there's a bunch of you can look him up. You can
uh,
find there's a bunch of the recordings of her complaining. Yeah,
oh yeah.
yeah, you can find them. They're in
Um,
the movie at the end. You can hear some of them.
but um, no, I like the movie. I like the music. I think it's cute. Um, I find the scene where at the near the end there, where the dad kind of goes batshit crazy and then comes back with his clothes all messed up and is like, "Come, children, let us go fly a
Come
kite."
join me in my psychotic break, children.
And and
Let
then
us
and
go
then
sing a merry little song.
and then the son of the owner of the
Daddy,
bank,
Daddy, you okay?
who was also played, the owner of the bank that the dad worked for, was played by Dick Van Dyke. And so then you get to the and he's like older than dirt or whatever. Then you get to that final scene where they're all flying the kite, and the son and like the other bankers and stuff are all also in the
Wait,
park
wait, wait,
flying
wait.
the
Sorry, sorry,
bank,
sorry, sorry. Stop
the
for a sec.
kite.
You said that Dick Van Dyke plays the son of the banker.
No, the Dick Van Dyke. When I say he plays, Dick Van Dyke plays the father. The father who's supposed to be like 90 something years old. He's an old man. He's
Oh,
wearing old man makeup
the father of the banker.
of the bank.
Oh, of the
Like he's
bank.
basically at okay. There's a scene in the movie
Yeah.
where the Mills father, the main family's father,
Right.
takes his kids to the bank, and there's this entire song about how the young son should deposit his tuppence into the bank so that
Right.
it can grow. And in that scene, the owner of the bank, who's like an old man, he's got a beard and
Hmm.
stuff, and he's hunched over and he's like really old.
Hmm.
That character is played by Dick Van Dyke.
So okay, so that leads me. Did you
And
end up watching the sequel?
no, I haven't. I didn't
Oh,
get the chance.
because there's a
So let
character.
me finish. Let me finish.
Oh,
Um,
let me just ask my.
let me finish. I will explain your question. I know the answer. Um, in that same scene,
Mhm.
the son of the owner of the bank is there and is one of the people singing.
Yeah.
So you get to the end of the movie, and that character, the son of that bank, like the owner of the bank, is there flying a kite, and he gives the dad his job back, and he's like, your joke, like your joke at the end that you made father laugh so hard that he died of laughter." And I now run the bank. I'm giving you your job, or we have a position open for partner, and the dad makes partner and stuff, right? And so then in the sequel,
Mhm.
Dick Van Dyke comes back and he plays that son.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that is the same character. Oh,
It
interesting.
is it's the same character. He plays that son of
Interesting.
the owner, that son of the original owner of the bank
Interesting.
is now played by Dick Van Dyke
Huh.
in a fun wink and a nod towards that.
Huh.
Um
I just man, I love movies from that. Julie Andrews. I could watch Julie Andrews in anything. I almost watched Mary Poppins just to why I love Julie Andrews. Like said
uh I
the
almost watched what I ended up choosing was hard. It was really hard in terms of the ones that I had seen, because turns out I've seen a number of movies from the 60s that I really like and have a fondness for.
it's
And
fun. It's just really funny that you say that because I was going back through yesterday. I was rewatching some of my my hit TikTok series, Top 100. I was watching the theatrical version of it, Top 100, the movie, now on YouTube. You can go check that out. Um, and I just kept saying in all my videos from movies and videos from the 60s, I kept saying of how an angry a decade it was. I was like, the movies in this era are so friggin', they're mad. They're mad about something. And it's just so funny that you're like, I had a hard time choosing between all the whimsical ones, you know?
I mean, because those are all the ones that I grew up with. Like
But
our a person from my past, um, really liked those old musicals
yeah.
and showed them like a lot of them to me. And so I have a special place in my heart for a lot of
Yeah, I
them.
mean, I loved Sound of
Um,
Music. When I rewatched Sound of Music for
that
Top
was
100,
another
like,
one that
oh,
I almost chose. I
loved
didn't
Sound of
get the
Music.
opportunity to rewatch that one, but I almost chose that one as well. But moving out of Mary Poppins, because I don't have much more to say about
No,
that
no.
one.
Moving
Is
on.
um Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which
Uh,
is
I'm a tad jealous. I almost watched it. I might watch it later today. I almost watched it because I
it's
genuinely want to
fun.
rewatch that movie because it's so
It's
much fun, and I keep
it's
talking about it,
fun.
and
And I like some of the music. And it's another Dick Van Dyke one.
yeah.
Um which funny thing that I learned about it is that when he was approached for making this movie, I don't know if it was a condition or if it was a demand or whatever, but one thing was that he was like he wanted to do his own like normal voice. He didn't want to have to do an accent
I
for
don't
it.
blame him.
Could he perhaps have been feeling the sting from his Cockney accent? That I can't
That
do it.
everyone made
I'm
fun
just
of him for his
I'm just as
bad
bad
Cockney accent.
of his bad I can't do
I
it.
can't do a Cockney. I can't do it.
I
Eh,
can't do a Cockney accent. I can't. Like it just doesn't
it was
sound
bad.
right.
His was bad. His was bad.
Um and
He still gets made fun of for it.
so could it be that he learned from that and didn't want to repeat that? I don't know. I'm not one to say. Yeah, probably. But in it he did an American accent, American, I guess, accent. He's from America,
Yeah,
right?
he's American. Yeah.
And in the movie he's supposed to live in Britain, and so his children both have British accent. The grandpa in it has British accents. Like it's very funny.
That's
But
funny.
uh again, this is I don't feel like, do I need to do like a blow by blow replay of
No,
this story? No.
no.
You've seen it, you know.
If
Uh
you don't, I mean, do a
it's
very
on
brief
it's
one.
on it's on Tubi, so
It's
anyone who wants to go
it's a
watch it for free can
it's a
go
movie
watch it for
about an
free.
inventor, his
A,
children, and a magical
an advent
car. That's all you need to
an
know.
adventurer named Kadaticus.
That is that's
He
his
has a
name.
he has a weird name. It's like something like that. Kadaticus.
Yeah. It's
Anyways,
quite a
it's a
long
weird
movie.
one.
It's from the 60s.
Um,
There's musical numbers that go on forever. The plot of it
it
doesn't
has an
matter.
it it has an intermission.
Yeah, it's one
That's
of
that's
those.
how
That's one of
that's how
those.
old it is.
I miss intermissions. They
Um,
should bring back intermissions.
but the one part that I do in terms of the story. Okay, so loose story. Uh, father's kids find this old like race car that they don't, or that they play in, but a junk man wants to take it away for 30 shillings. uh Dad doesn't have 30 shillings. Dad goes to fair and steals the show from a bunch of stage performers and earns 30 shillings. Buys car, remakes car into drivable car. Car can do chitty chitty bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang, song. Meets
There's a love interest. I could
meets
sw-
meets love it meets love interest whose father was cruel, because their last name is Scrumptious and he named her Truly. Um,
My favorite part about that is just kind of like, yeah, your last name's Scrumptious. What are you gonna do? You're gonna make candy. That's what you're gonna do. It's just
um, and they go to beach, hang out at beach, sing more songs.
she wears a very
Father,
90s 60s outfit, you know. Oh,
oh,
that's a bathing
absolutely.
suit. That's a bathing suit. Oh, he's wearing
Actually, I
the
think it's
he's wearing a really long one piece. No, you're not
uh
seeing any genitals.
uh Arete Media asks, Was Bedknobs and Broomsticks the 60s? I can't remember.
It's,
I'm not
it's
sure.
it's funny you mentioned bed knobs and broomsticks because perhaps we're going to be talking about bed knobs and broomsticks later. Maybe.
Stay
So if
tuned.
you want to stick around, Jake, and we can talk about bed knobs and broomsticks. But to answer your question, it's very much the 70s. Um, go
Uh,
go
uh,
on, Jordan.
so that they end up at the beach and they're all like, Daddy, tell us a story. And so he does, and he tells a story about a king baron. I believe he's a baron from oh,
Random
the name's
German
right there.
country. He's
No,
vaguely
it's
German.
Bulgaria. That was it. Bulgaria.
Right, Bulgaria.
Vulgaria,
Right.
because
That's
vulgar,
funny, actually.
vulgar,
Vulgar. That's funny.
Vulgaria.
That's actually
Um,
funny.
and So the reason why I had to brush up to get up to this point is because in this land of Bulgaria, the Baron of Bulgaria wants the flying car, or wants the magical car, is the point of the story. And so he keeps trying to steal it. And so there's this portion where they're driving home and he sent his bumbling goons to try and steal it. They put down like the portrait of the opening of a bridge in front of a bridge, and they've got the on the other side of the box car to try and capture the car. But they capture the candy maker, the love interest's father's car instead. Yada yada yada, and they end up thinking that Cadadicus's dad is the inventor, and they take him when he's in the outhouse. Which, as an aside, I for the first time understood a joke that as a kid I never understood. Uh, so the grandfather, he makes the joke, or he makes the comment how every day he goes to a different place. He goes on an adventure to a different place, Africa, so like different locations and stuff. And so as they're leaving to go to the beach or whatever to go on their picnic, um, they see him going towards the what I now know is the outhouse. And the Cadadicus is like, where are you off to today? He's like, oh, I'm going to Africa or whatever the country that he says is. And then he walks off and he goes in, like he's got his newspaper. He walks off and he goes to the outhouse. And I'm like, oh, the adventures he goes on is him going to the bathroom.
That's funny.
I never got that as a kid.
That's
I
funny.
feel stupid.
That's hilarious.
That's really funny.
So then
Uh,
the airship or whatever picks him up later, he's in the outhouse. That's
he's in
funny.
his
That's
outhouse.
funny. That's really funny.
Um, and so they take him off to Bulgaria to make the flying, like a flying car for them, and brings him there. And he's all like, at first he tries to tell them that it's not him, and it was his son. And the Baron of Bulgaria is like, it's not you. God, you're going to die, execution. And he's like, oh, whoa. I was just kidding.
Yeah,
It is me.
maybe it was me.
it,
Perhaps it
it
was
was
me.
me.
It could have been
It
me.
was me. And so then he's like, all right, okay, I'm gonna take you to go and make the car. And he takes him to the place. And there's all these old men, and he's like, oh, and he leaves them there to make it. And the Baron leaves or whatever. And the grandpa's all like, I can't do it. I don't know what to do. And all the people are like, courage, man, courage. And then they sing about roses and success, and it's
There's
this
a
whole
there's a
thing.
jaunty
It's a
little number.
whole jaunty day. It's my favorite song in the movie. I'm not gonna lie.
Really,
And
I like Old Bamboo, but Old Bamboo does have that overly
I
long dance break in the middle.
yeah, I like Old Man Boot, but it's got that long dance sequence. Though I will say, uh, and I did want to mention this. It's funny that you bring up Old Bamboo, because a thing that I kind of appreciate with some of these older movies from the 60s is 60s, 70s, what have you, is that they do live on in popular culture.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who might not have seen this movie know at least the tune of one of the songs if they've ever seen Family Guy,
Oh, I mean, Family Guy
because
takes a lot of old school. Family Guy in
I know
particular case.
I know, but that's kind of my point, is that a lot of people at least know of the songs, they just don't necessarily know what it comes from, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, that was a
Um,
weird one where I was like, hey, I know the original before I know
yeah,
this.
before I knew
Yeah.
the parody version, but so they show up in there. By they, I of course mean the family.
Yeah, who are
And
all characters in the story, but all share the same names. So it's like,
yeah.
as a kid, it
So
was so confusing because it was like
at this point,
I always remember being like,
like you have to keep in mind in your mind that it's like everything that's happening at this point is fictional. It's a story within a story.
yeah,
The
I
dad
never
is
got
telling a
that.
story.
I never got that as a kid. It wasn't until like much later in life where I rewatched it at like 14 or 15 where I was like, oh, so the second half post intermission doesn't actually happen. So the
It's
car
the
isn't
dad telling a
actually
story.
the car isn't actually magic. And then at the end of the movie, it's implied that it might actually be magic. It's like, oh, I get that bit now.
We'll get there because I had thoughts about that final scene. But So within the realm of this story in Bulgaria, the fictional made-up country that the Englishman is, and this is a thing that I want to keep in mind is from what I remember or understand, the movie is supposed to take place in like 1910,
Mm-hmm.
which I think there was tension with Germany at that point.
Not yet, no.
Not yet?
No, that's pre
Are you
World War
sure?
One. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Doesn't mean there wasn't tension.
it didn't. Tension didn't work. The World War One wasn't the same as World War Two.
Um,
The conflict was
Either
different,
way,
entirely different.
it yeah, Arete Inception before Inception.
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty
yeah,
much.
pretty
It's a
much, man.
movie within a movie.
Yeah.
Uh, but only reason why I say that is because I question some of the character choices, and when you keep in mind that the story at this point is being told by an Englishman in
Oh, well, I
1910.
mean, 1960s in terms of when it was made, I'm sure it was probably pot shots at Germany, sure. But in terms of the story, that's pre World War One.
Um, so anyway, in Bulgaria, the subtitles anyway say that the people in this country of Bulgaria are speaking German.
Mm.
Now, it's a fictional in terms of the story, it's a fictional country.
Mm.
So they would be speaking Bulgarian.
Theoretically, yeah.
But
But in
but
Bulgaria,
the
they could
sub
just speak German.
okay, sure,
Also, you're watching it
theoretically.
on Tubi. What the sub? I would take what the subtitles call it with the grain of salt.
But so in this country, basically they're wandering the streets and the soldiers and stuff had seen that they landed and were like, get that car, I want that car. And so the soldiers start coming into town and all the townspeople are like running and hiding in their homes and stuff. And the toy maker like sees them on the street and is like, hurry, hurry, like get in here, hide your children. And you end up finding out that the Baron is a giant man baby who likes toys and hates children, which I mean, to be fair, to be fair, I'm just saying to be fair.
I'm not saying I
But
don't relate.
by 1960 standards, when the modern family had to have a mother to a boy and a girl and a father, and that's exactly what they have set up in this story.
Yep.
I'm just saying the 60s had a certain perception of what the ideal family was
The
supposed to
nuclear
be.
family, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so a man child who only wants toys for himself and to live with his, uh, I'm not gonna lie, kind of attractive baroness, and doesn't want any children to be like within like 200 miles of him. I'm just saying, fair enough.
So is the implication is that he's killing kids? Is that the implication?
It certainly
'Cause that's
is
dark.
implied that it's certainly implied that he locks them up.
Oh.
Um, because he has a child catcher.
The child
Now,
catcher.
now, I don't know if you're able to, Justin. Just for your own image of him, if you could if you can have a picture of him up on your screen.
I remember what the child catcher
Uh,
looks like.
but
No, because then I'd have to Google child cat. I don't want that on my computer.
fair,
I don't want
fair.
that. Everyone,
But
if you
the
picture the
reason
phrase
why
child catcher and just like conjure an image in your brain, that's what he looks like. Like
the
pretty much
reason
exactly what
why
you think he looks like is what he looks like.
the reason why I question some of the tensions that might have been going on at that point in the world is because of this character with his pointy nose, dark hair, kind of connotates a certain
Oh, like I say, it's
image.
1960s. It's post World War II. So like in terms
And
of the
he
actual making of the
is
movie,
the
yeah,
only
that might have been an
he is the
anti-Semitic
he is
character.
the only character in this German country where they all, not German, but a character where they all have accents, which doesn't have the same accent as any of
I'm
the other
I'm pretty
ones.
sure the notion of the Jewish people snatching children. I think that's a Jewish negative Jewish stereotype. I'm pretty sure.
I could believe it because yeah, unfortunate
Certainly
choice
sounds
in
like
my
he's
opinion.
coded Jewish, that's for sure. Which is not.
Um
But it's again, it's the 1960s. This is one of those things where you can't. I mean, you shouldn't hold it
it's
against
just
it.
I don't per se, but my 2023 sensibilities
But that
force me
is
to point it out.
that is an uncomfy character. Everyone remembers the child
Um
character. The child. If no one remembers anything from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, other than maybe the theme song, it's the child
It's
catcher.
the child
It's the
catcher
child catcher.
because he is an uncomfortable character.
He is.
Anyway, so long and short of the rest of it is that the 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 dad and the toy maker and the love interest save the kids, and they all live happily ever after in terms of that story. And then we fade back out and they're sitting at the beach, and the kids at the very end are like, and then Trudy and blah 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 get married, and the dad is like, well, I mean, that's a silly ending, and the love interest is all like, well, what's so silly about it? And the dad awkwardly has to be like, well, I mean, you're
We
rich,
we,
I'm poor.
we didn't have
We
that
we
character arc. The
you
characters in the story did.
you no more. The point is, you're rich, I'm poor. We come from different like cultural
Oh,
like
it's right. It's the
classes.
60s. There's classism. Forgot about that.
And like there's no way that it would ever possibly work. And she gets all affronted and she's like, if I ever said that to you, you'd call me a snob. And I'm like, she's not wrong. Um,
But also,
it's sort of
classism is the 60s and it's Britain. It exists.
it absolutely exists.
It
Uh,
should not bury
and
manifestation.
so they go back to the kids and the dad go back to the house, and the love interest's dad, who I've neglected to mention that he's the owner of a big candy factory.
No, wait.
Truly,
We talked about how her name was truly scrumptious. Remember?
oh, right. And so he's like, the dad had taken a type of candy that he had made to him to try and sell it, and that whole thing went tits up and didn't work out well. But now he's come back and he's like this candy that you made for us wasn't great for humans, but animals really seem to like it. So like we're gonna make like a pet version of it and sell it in that regard. So you're rich. And
So,
and so then the dad's all like, "Oh man, I can totally go for the rich girl now. Awesome!" And he drives back and like runs her off the road again accidentally because she came there and was like, "I heard," and they're all like, "Awesome!" And he kisses her and she's all like, "Oh, you have to marry me now because it's the 1910s, and that means that we're essentially married now." Wink. Um and that's that. Then they drive off, and it's like the car, and he's like making this speech about like how a man's head can be in the clouds or something like that. And so it's like I don't think that the car actually flies off. I think the idea is supposed to be that like um his love for her is like putting his head in the clouds.
oh, it's a metaphor. You're saying it's not. It's
That's
not
what I
actually a magic car.
like. Much like how like the at the end of Greece, Danny and the girl fly off, and it's like they're like up on cloud nine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Sure. That makes sense.
That's my interpretation of it anyway. So that's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Now with that being said, we're going to move on to the two movies that I haven't seen, which one is only I kind of haven't seen it because technically I've seen a version of it. I just haven't seen this version of it. And that is The Parent Trap. I watched the original Parent Trap. I very much have watched the 1990s version of The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan. Grew up on that version.
That was funny.
Uh,
Yesterday, I was in the other room, And I started screaming. I was like, I recognize that scream. He's watching Parent Trap.
Arete, yes, exactly like the ending of Grease.
Yeah,
Very, very similar to the ending of Grease.
yeah.
Um, but Parent Trap. Um, so I mean, the beats are all the same. So I'm not, or at least largely the same.
They go to
So I don't feel
camp.
the
They
need to.
meet. Is
They
it?
they go to camp, they meet. There's some slight differences. So like for example, when they're in the isolation. Yeah, the Lindsay Lohan version is actually quite good. I don't know that I like it more.
Really
I there's things in this version that make more sense,
interesting.
and it makes it makes choices in the 90s version that already bothered me bother me more.
Interesting.
So for example, so okay,
Let's just talk
uh
about the differences. It's just to
yeah,
settle
well,
some time.
I am. So one of the first differences is so when they bring them to the isolation cabin, the camp leader is like basically, I'm gonna have you two be in here for the entirety of the summer because you two, like, if you two dislike each other as much as you appear to, you two will punish each other way worse than any punishment I could ever come up with, which is a line that I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
It also, unlike in the Lohan, so in the Lohan version, the isolation cabin seems like way worse of a punishment
Yeah.
because they are 100% every moment eat, sleep, drink, whatever. They are just around each other there. Whereas in the other version, they still eat in the main hall. They just have an isolation table where they
Right.
can only sit with each other. But like they still do stuff and see the other campers. It's just 90% of the time they're in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Um uh but so the one of the big differences between the 60s version and the 90s version. So you know how in the 90s version the one girl comes from England and it never made any sense that her mother would send her across the ocean to an American summer camp.
Yeah, now that you say that out loud, yeah, you're right. That doesn't make any sense.
Like to me anyway, some people will be like, oh, they're rich and that was supposed to like
No, yeah. Why
push
would she
the
not
idea, but
send?
why, like, she would
Why
send her
would
to
she not?
maybe
Yeah,
Germany,
to British.
France, or
Yeah,
or
somewhere in Europe.
somewhere in Europe, right? Like, why would
Yeah,
she send her to an American summer camp?
yeah. That's
Well,
weird.
in the original version, the mom and therefore that sister is from Boston.
That makes sense.
So the idea that they would both end up at like a different state, but they're still in the same country. Like, so like the one girl is still very much from California
Mm.
and the other's from Boston. So like they end up in Massachusetts or something. Like that's like that.
Oh, yeah,
I
that
don't
makes
I'm,
sense.
I'm not saying that's where they end up in this
Yeah,
example,
but that makes
but
sense.
like it would make more sense like you send them to an out of state summer camp
Yeah,
rather than an out of country. I don't know about you, but like even like I'm
intercontinental,
not
not even
I'm not
cross
I'm
country,
not sending I'm
intercontinental.
not yeah, exactly. Like I'm not sending a child of mine from somewhere in Canada to America.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
would be a lot of money.
I mean, even then, that's less bad than intercontinental. Like, I'm not sending someone from Canada to Britain for the summer.
No.
No, I'm not doing
No.
that.
To me that just doesn't make any
That
sense.
feels unsafe
Um so oh and the other
and
big
expensive.
difference and expensive. Which the idea in that Lindsay Lohan version in particular is supposed to be that they're rich. Like
Yeah,
it really wants to, same like both sides of the family. It
yeah,
really wants to push. They have butlers.
yeah.
Like it really wants to put. He owns a vineyard in California. He is absolutely rich
Oh,
in
yeah,
that
they're both
version.
rich. Yeah.
Um, and so what's interesting about the 60s version is it has characters that the 90s version definitely didn't feel the need to include.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
that
and
happens a lot.
and
Yeah.
and a part of that is because, in terms on the dad's side, is because he's a vineyard runner. And I can't remember what his business is. In the 60s version, I watched this earlier in the week, so some of the details have flown away from me. But um, he has what I think is supposed to essentially be a ranch hand,
Right.
who comes with them. Like, so when they do that big camping trip,
Mm.
that character comes with them.
Uh,
and so he's also there during that camping trip. Um, but so it's funny because there's a lot of scenes where it's like they are very faithful recreations, like to the point where it's like a line for line reread. Um, Another character that just doesn't exist in the Lohan version is so you know how on the mother's side there's the grandpa character.
Mm.
In the original version, there is also a grandma who
Oh.
is like who is like the matriarch of the family and like is like super controlling. So like the butler or maid or whichever it is sees that character gets a haircut and is immediately like, yeah, your grandmother is not going to be okay with this. Not your mother isn't going to be okay with this.
Hmm.
Like your grandmother. The grandmother played like a really like kind of
Yeah.
role in it, which obviously I guess in the like in the 90s version they were just like, yeah, the whole matriarchal thing isn't really so much a thing now in the
No.
same way that it would have been in the 60s.
No, absolutely
So
not.
clearly they were like, yeah, we can just cut this character right out.
Yeah.
Um so the stepmother in the 60s version is named Vicky. Um, and so then in the 90s version, and this was the fun Easter egg that I kind of hinted at to you last night, uh, Meredith's mother is named Vicky.
Oh,
And
that's funny.
so she says to the Lindsay Lohan character, "You may call me Aunt Vicky," and she's played by the stepmother, by the mother, the not the mother,
The original actress who played the
the
stepmom in the original.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Uh,
That's funny.
uh, so that was a reference that I didn't pick up on
No,
that
I would have never got
as a
that.
kid,
Yeah.
but when I watched it this time, I was like, hey, like at first I saw her and I recognized her
Yeah.
and I was like, is that the same actor? I had to go and I looked it up well, like I heard Vicky and I was like, that was the name of the mother, like or the girlfriend or whatever from the first one.
Mhm.
And then I was like, "Is that the same actress?" And I looked it up, and then it's like, sure enough, it is. And I'm like, "Oh snap!
That's funny.
That's a fun little Easter egg." Um, but and so then it's also funny because yeah, there's scenes that are the same. So like they put the lizard on her backpack or whatever, just like they do in the Lindsay Lohan version. When they're up at the in the camping experience, she's like, "I'll just like I don't do fish. I'll just wait for breakfast." And she's like, "What? Like what's gonna be for breakfast? Trout." Just like in the Lindsay Lohan version.
That's funny.
Um. Uh. What else? Oh, there's so many. There's a whole singing scene which doesn't happen where the
No.
two
But it's
sisters are
funny is
singing.
when I looked it up, it is on the soundtrack for the Lindsay Lohan version. They just don't do it. It's a redone version of it. I don't think they do it in the actual movie.
Oh, really?
But yeah,
Oh,
it is
funny.
there. It is there. I remember that
Uh,
from the sing along song. It was like on a tape. That's the only reason why I knew that the Lindsay Lohan version was a remake, was because
uh,
I saw
what
the
else?
sing along song.
What other differences are there? That was the big one with the Aunt Vicky. Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to mention. Um, so we're gonna play a game, and I'm gonna give you a few hints. And chat, if you're there, anyone who's chat that's there can see if they can guess this. But um, so the dad in the '60s version of Parent Trap, he plays a character from a thing that you know that we grew up like that you and I grew up with, but he doesn't play like a main character. It's superhero related, and it's from like the thing that you know him from is from the '90s,
It's a live action
animated.
animated. He's a voice.
He's a voice, but he's not like a main character or like an, but he's like he's like a quarter post of that character, if that makes any sense.
Is it Ed Asner?
I don't know the actor's name.
Is he
You're
the
gonna
one?
have to go by character.
No.
You're
It's
gonna have to go by character name.
J. Jonah Jameson.
No, you're in the right show though.
I'm in the right show. I want to say Uncle Ben.
Ding, 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 ding.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
He's Uncle Ben.
But he's only Uncle Ben was in like one episode.
He was in one. He was in the first episode, and then he was in the Spider Carnage episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I just was like, who's an important character? And then I went, Ed Asner is from that era, and that's J. Jonah Jameson.
When I say important character, I mean to the character.
Oh, okay. J. Jonah Jameson is important. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but that wasn't the right
Okay.
character.
All right.
And so I think that was the biggest changes. Other than that, I mean, it's kind of impressive again how simple. Oh! There was one more thing I wanted to mention. So two funny things. One, during the part in the movie when they're like the sisters are still angry and upset with each other. So you know how in the Lindsay Lohan movie, a version of the movie, there's the scene where they do the whole swashbuckling fencing scene and they're fighting and stuff. Well, uh, in the uh, in the original movie, there's a scene where they fight, like they actually fight, like they slap each other, fight.
Yeah.
um which I'm like, yeah, I know that you would not get that in like a even 90s version of this, which is clearly why they were like,
I'm pretty
let's have them
sure.
fence
I'm
because
pretty
we can
sure.
have them fight without fighting.
I'm pretty sure the girls in the '60s version. I think they're actual twins. I think
I don't
from.
think they
I'm
are,
pretty
because
sure
from
they
what I
are.
remember of looking it up, I only saw one actress that played them.
Pretty sure it's their twin. The only version of it where they're not played by twins is the Lindsay Lohan version. I'm pretty sure.
I don't I'd have to double check on that, but I think you're wrong.
Uh,
But so the other thing that made me go like, oh yeah, no, this is definitely from the '60s and would not be okay now, is so at the final, the crescendo of that camping scene where the girlfriend storms off, and the in this version the rancher brings the dad's assistant or whatever brings her back down. Um, she's she says to the one twin, she's like, "You guys are twins, right? So that means that you share everything, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, like we do or whatever." And she's like, "Good, that you can give your sister her half of this." And open palm slaps her across the face. And I'm just like, and she's 13 years old. She's supposed to be a 13-year-old girl, and she just open palm slaps her across the face. And I'm just like,
it's the
oh yeah.
1960s. Okay, so let's anything else
Uh,
you have to let's move on to your next
my next one is
wrap up
that
the
that
Parent
that's
Trap.
that's all that I have for the Parent Trap. But my next one is one that I would be very surprised if you have heard anything about this one, because I kind of just picked one randomly. It's called Frankie and Johnny.
No. Never heard of it.
No,
No.
never heard of it. It
No.
has it has a very famous star in it that you absolutely do know. He goes by a little name of Elvis Presley.
Oh, you picked an Elvis Presley movie. Oh shit.
Uh,
Okay.
uh, so he's a riverboat gambler, and the the titular, that's the word I'm looking for. Other character, Frankie, is played by Donna Douglas from the Beverly Hillbillies TV series.
Okay.
Um, and um, so the point of the movie is basically, uh, Johnny and his girlfriends are performers on this riverboat, and Johnny is a notorious gambler. Like, he has a problem, man. If there's one thing that I can distinctly tell you about this movie, um,
Johnny has a
man,
problem.
man has a problem. Uh,
He likes
so yeah,
gambling.
he works on this riverboat cruise, which has like a casino in it, and man, his boss has a sweet deal going with him, because Johnny makes a paycheck and then immediately turns around to the casino and gives his money right back to his boss. And one thing that you kind of find out over the course of this movie, um, some of the games may not be on the up and up.
Sounds about right.
And so I mean, it's a musical, of course.
Of
So
course.
you know, it's got your good old
It's got
hunka
Elvis.
burning
It's
love
got Elvis in it. Of course, it's a
singing.
musical.
You know, so that's it's a movie which is like only like an hour and a half.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
so so you can imagine how much of that is just music.
Yep.
Which is why you can also imagine that this took me 2 nights to finish because I was really tired the first night and I like his singing and
Yeah.
he kind of just gently rocked me to sleep.
Yep.
Um, but over the course of the movie, so at one point he goes and he he needs to go and see these gypsies so that they can give him a fortune and help him with his terrible luck so that he can start winning some money so that him and his good old Frankie can leave the riverboat scene and go to Broadway. I think it was Broadway they're trying to go to, and make it big in the singing and dancing circuit, which they absolutely have the talent to do
Because he's
because
Elvis.
He's
Yeah.
Elvis Presley,
Yeah.
and also she can sing pretty well too.
It feels like one of those
Um,
movies where it's distracting because he keeps complaining about hardship, but he's Elvis.
he's Elvis. He's young Elvis, like too. So he's
Yeah.
like, hot, like handsome.
I don't
The
think I've
ladies are all swooning
ever
for
seen
him.
a movie with Elvis in it.
Me neither. This was the first time.
I don't think I have,
Um,
man.
it was a fun one, but I keep getting distracted. Over the course of the movie, um, the boss's uh main girl, as they put it,
Mm.
um, show that like comes back into the scene as Johnny is doing his whole gambling thing, and the gypsies have told him that he needs to find a redhead, and mean like so he's like with his best friend companion who does the piano and stuff for him. He's like, I ain't gonna leave Frankie for the redhead. I just need her for luck, basically, right? Like make my fortune and get out of here, you know?
Mm.
And so he goes back to the table, the roulette table, and he's about to put money down on seven, and this beautiful redhead who is the boss's main squeeze, knocks over his chips, and he's like,
Oh,
"Oh,
right. It's
that's bad
1960s.
luck. That's bad luck. No, I can't put the money on that now." And so then the roulette goes, and that number that he would have put it on wins, and he's like, "Oh, I think I found my lucky redhead. Like, what's your lucky number?" And she's like, "One." Like, cause I'm number one or something like that, and cause this takes place in Mississippi.
Mm.
So as you're picturing this, just imagine that most of them have Mississippi accents,
Hmm.
except for Elvis because he has an Elvis accent,
Because he's Elvis.
because he's Elvis. And they really want you to know that he's Elvis. He is the selling point of this.
Of course.
Um, so then he puts money down on one and wins. And then she wanders off, and it was like the rates were essentially that he put down not that much, and I think he put down like I think it was supposed to be $50 or something, and he walks away with 700.
Mm.
Um, and so then, yeah, the girl wanders off. You don't know that she's the boss's main squeeze yet, but then literally the next scene is she goes and sees the boss, and the boss is all like, "Oh, you're here," and he goes to kiss her, and she's like, "We ain't picking up from where we left off." And more stuff happens. There's a show that happens, like the riverboat show that you
Hmm.
see, where the point is that Frankie Johnny Johnny is giving attention to basically the plot of the movie.
Mm.
Johnny is giving attention to the redhead girl. Frankie doesn't like it, and then in terms of the song, she's like, "For Johnny's been doing me wrong," and has a gun which has a blank in it, which she shoots at him and stuff, and that's the point of the show, like of the stage show, and then people applaud and more courting the redhead to get her to be his lucky rabbit's foot,
Mm.
and at one point he tries to find a different redhead to be his lucky rabbit foot, and she's really drunk and she keeps going like, "Put the money down on 13," and he does, and it wins, and she's like, "Put, let it roll," and it wins again, and then she's like 13 for another time, and he's like 13, okay, 13, and then she's like actually 31, and so then he changes it to 31, and then that's when you see that the roulette person has their hand under the table, and you're supposed to infer that it's like fixed because it once again goes to 13, and so he loses like all of it,
Mm-hmm.
and then more stuff happens. There's like a Mardi Gras party, and the blonde Frankie girlfriend is really really upset with the redhead chick whose name isn't important, um and so then um at the Mardi Gras party, it's like a dress up party,
Mm-hmm.
and so Frankie, the girlfriend, the redhead girl, and this one other girl who had been with the boss while the redhead girl was out of town, but then was found out she was like the boss's second girl,
Mm-hmm.
um, are all wearing the Madame de Pompadour outfit, and so then Frankie and the redhead girl kind of are like, oh, like we don't have to be enemies. You're like giving Johnny attention just to piss off the boss. And I want like he's doing it just for luck. And so then the blonde girl takes the place of the redhead girl while she's in costume, and for Johnny continues to win. And he's like, "Come on, come with me, redhead girl. Like you're my luck, good luck charm. We could
Mm-hmm.
go and like win big in wherever it was, Jersey or whatever, some gambling town." And then the blonde haired girl is like, "Ha ha ha! It was actually me the entire time, and I'm leaving you because you were gonna leave me for the red haired girl." And he's all like, "No, baby, I wasn't. I promise. I'm Elvis. You can trust me.
Elvis,
Hunk
you can
hunk a
trust me.
bird, hunk a bird in love." And
Don't step on blue suede shoes.
uh, and so then he like
Other
he
Elvis
walks
songs.
away. He walks away from the table with his fat stack of cash and goes up to her room and is like, "Baby, I swear, I wasn't doing you no wrong. I wasn't doing you dirty. You can trust me, baby." And
I'm
he's like,
Elvis.
see this money that I got because I'm Elvis and I'm handsome and this is my movie. We
I'm
can
the good
take this.
guy.
We can take this movie and go to Broadway just like we always wanted to because I'm Elvis and I can take you to the top with me
Because I'm Elvis.
and because I'm Elvis
Because I'm Elvis.
and and she's all like, "This is what I think of your cash," and she tosses it out the window and it's
Who's
raining money
Elvis now?
and everybody's all like, "Oh man, free money!" And they're gathering the money and he goes down and she's fucked off because she's pissed off at him and so he goes outside and he's trying to get the money back from people. And he's like, "Hey, you see that money that came out the window? It's mine." And everybody's all like, "What money?" As they're putting money in their pockets. And so then there's this uh, African American youth who has a harmonica who's playing it. And Elvis is like, "Did you see any of that money that fell out of the window?" And the kid's all like, "Nah, I didn't see anything, mister. Don't suppose you have change for this $50 bill?" And he's like, "No, sadly I don't." And then the kid's playing harmonica and Elvis does one of his classic blues songs, which is very Elvis. And it sounds great and it's Elvis, so of course it does. Um and More stuff happens and the boss with his sidekick who I have neglected to mention up until this point because his name elicits a certain image, which is not true. So when I tell you that the boss's sidekick's name is Blackie,
Oh
what
no.
what image does that connotate?
A racist one?
It's a white guy.
Oh. Oh, I can see why you didn't want to say his name.
Yeah, it's a weird name choice, which I don't really. There are so many other names you could have chosen, so that's a choice. Anyway, that character, he says to like the boss is saying to him, he's saying something to the effect of because jo- not Johnny, Frankie, the girl. she comes back and says to the boss, you prepaid me and Johnny for 2 months, so I'm under contract, so I'm back and I'm gonna keep doing the show because I don't have a choice. But the boss is like says to his friend Blackie, his stoogie Blackie, uh, that his girl has taken an interest in Johnny, and it's like he's like, it's a shame that he can't be killed. And the Blackie kind of is like, well, I mean, Johnny or Frankie shoots him in the show, and yeah, that's where he's like, oh yeah, the boss is like, oh, it's a shame that can't happen for real, and he's like, Brad Blackie's like, so just to be clear, you're saying that you wish this would happen. He's like, oh yeah, if only, like very obviously not meaning it, right? And his idiot stooge is like, well, all right then. And then next couple of scenes, you see him talking to people around the place. He's like, so like theoretically, if a woman killed her fella, do you think she could get away with it? Like, do you think she'd go to jail? And one guy's like, yeah, I think he could. The other's like, nah, she. If it was my like if I were mine, right? And so then he takes it upon himself, Blackie does, to change the blank out of the gun that she shoots in the show and put in a real bullet. And so the show goes on, and he's like, "Don't worry." And meanwhile, the boss's girl has come back to the boss, and he's like, "Well, why don't you marry me, honey? I think we should be together." And that was the entire point, is she wanted him to ask that, and she's like, "Oh, ask me again after the show, and maybe I'll say yes." And so now he's happy, and he doesn't want Johnny to die. And so then Blackie comes back, he's like, "Oh, don't worry, boss. Problems taken care of." And he's all like, what are you talking about? He's like, I I did what you suggested. I changed the bullet and made it so it's a real one, and so your problem's gonna go away. Wink wink. And he's like, no, 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 no. And he goes running for the stage as the show is performing, and it keeps cutting back and forth to him trying to get through the riverboat so that, he's not like, secondhand responsible for the murder of one of his employees, uh, who also happened to be appearing to court his girl, and he would definitely look like he was the one that put the bullet in there, and go to 1960s jail, which I have to imagine is not a good place when you murdered Elvis. Um, um, and so it gets to the point where she shoots the gun, and she shoots the gun, and he bursts in. And he's like, "No! Like there wasn't actually a bullet in there." And she's like, "Oh God, Johnny, no, no, Johnny! Oh, I love you, Johnny!" And then he gets up, and there was something. I don't remember what it was. So a coin or something that blocked the bullet, and he's all like, "Oh,
I
baby,
can't
I'm
die.
Elvis.
I'm Delvis. I
I
live
can't,
forever.
I can't die here, baby. I got a few more years left in me."
I have to live.
Oh,
I'm Elvis.
no, this was before the ha 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 stage, but uh, so that was the movie, and then it pretty much just ends like right there.
All right. So that was the 1960s. What an experience! I love how you opted to pick musicals. That was a
Oh, right, it was a lucky medallion that Frankie had given to him.
right.
That was what saved him.
So I enjoy how you didn't pick any of the grimy, gross movies because you were like, I'm gonna leave those for Justin. He's doing the 70s. The 70s is grimy and gross. So let's move
60s
on
is
to the
happy and
70s.
fun, apparently.
Yeah. And I opted. Here's the thing: we talked about how it was funny how you opted to go for that. Man, the 70s is grimy and gross. Like, there's so many of these movies that I was like, I can't talk about this. It involves a nasty blankety blank. I can't talk about that. Like, oh man, that's really gnarly. And so we're gonna do this in reverse order. In the event that Jake wants to know about bed knobs and broomsticks. We're going to talk about the ones I hadn't seen first. Also because I have way less to say about them than I do the ones I did see. So, we're going to start off with bed knobs and broomsticks. Yes, I watched bed knobs and broomsticks. And it's really funny that the talk about Mary Poppins because that movie almost didn't come out because it was compared to Mary Poppins. And I always compared it. I always saw it as kind of a companion piece to Mary Poppins. The very loose plot of it. Have you seen Bedknobs and Broomsticks? I can't
I
imagine you
don't.
have.
I don't think so.
I thought I did, and then I watched it, and I got about 15 minutes in, and I was like, no, I've never seen this. I think I just saw the poster on the wall at a video store and just like assumed I had.
Filled in the blanks.
But basically, it's about these. It's like Mary Poppins meets the Chronicles of Narnia almost, because basically it's about these three kids who are being shipped off to who are orphans. They've been orphaned during the war, and they get taken in by Angela Lansbury, who is a witch. She's an amateur witch, and she is studying magic through a correspondence course. And she's trying to study enough magic so she can beat the Nazis in the war. And so she has been... It's a correspondence course. You know what a correspondence course is?
Where you send away for something?
Yeah, it's where you send away for the course and they send you the materials. So she's been studying to be a witch, and she's been sort of pressured because she has to take in these kids legally to take these kids in. And they basically she's pretending she's not a witch, and the kids see her flying the broomstick. She gets a broomstick, so she's learning how to fly on the broomstick. And it's kind of an impressive effect for the 1970s. We're like, oh wow, it legit looks like she's flying this broomstick. Oh, that was the thing with Superman. It was kind of impressive when they made him fly. Some of the special effects are kind of impressive for the time.
Sorry, real quick. One last thing about Frankie and Johnny, which I thought was interesting, which I just learned. The director was Frederick de Cordova, who in 1970 went on to become the director and producer of The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson.
That makes sense. Anyway,
Sorry.
That's a broomsticks. And so yeah, these kids get taken in by Angela Lansbury, who's a witch. She's studying to be a witch. She's not a full-fledged witch. She's been receiving these lessons from whomever. And the kids find out that she's a witch. And the effects on this movie are incredible. We're going to get into some of them later. And it ties back to Mary Poppins. But so she takes them in, and the kids see that she's a witch and are basically like, give us something or we will tell people you're a witch. And she's like, oh no, don't do that. That would interfere with my work. And so she takes a travel spell that came with the course, and she enchants a bed knob off of a bed, like a knob bed off of a bed. And she tells the one kid, only you can use this. And that's where the name Bedknobs and Broomsticks comes from.
That checks out.
They use for the rest of the movie, they use a bed to travel around places. And so then she basically is like, oh, I can't get this last spell, which I need. She goes to get the kid to take them to London. And the one kid's like, I still don't believe any of this nonsense. And this movie's a musical, but it forgets it's a musical all the time. So just randomly, it'll be like, oh shit, we're a musical. And then they'll start to do a musical number. And you're like, oh, right, I guess. And then the musical number just goes on forever. And they meet up with this street magician, this street hustler, who, ironically, is played by, because I was like, I'm watching this, I'm like, why do I recognize him? It's the dad from Mary Poppins.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
it's a small world after all.
I know. And so in my headcanon, it's the dad, and the kids have grown up, and he's become a hustler in his like old age or whatever. And it's the same universe. So she's a witch, and Mary Poppins is a witch, and she studied like the same course or whatever. And so, but anyway, it turns out that this guy who's been sending her the correspondence, the course, is actually just a charlatan street magician. And the magic he got was from half of a magic book that he managed to steal from a bookseller. And it turns out that this magic book was written by this wizard or witch or whatever, who the evil guy has the back half of it. And they discover that he in fact has an amulet that will allow them to do this spell, which basically brings stuff to life, inanimate objects to life. And this wizard had been practicing this spell and had brought a bunch of animals to life. And so there's this whole sequence where they all go to this animal world where it's all animated anthropomorphic animals. And like there's a king, and he's got the amulet around his neck, and they're playing soccer. They're trying to play. The guy volunteers to be the ref because they can't find refs for some reason because they play too rough. And it's this really technically impressive sequence where they're perfectly blended in to this animated background. It's like 1-to-1. It's like they're there. And when you're like, oh shit, this is like 1973 or 4, I think. Like, it's an impressive effect. I'm like, holy shit, this is really impressive. And it prompted me like, how are they doing this? And it's the same technology they use for Mary Poppins, which is why I said that sequence is also impressive. Where it's
But
like
clearly, by the time they got to yours, it was more refined.
I don't know if it was, but it's a yellow powder that you paint over the background of whatever it is you want to superimpose your people into, and then you use it to superimpose them, and you have to shoot it in a specific lighting. It's basically a really early primitive version of green screening. And the way
Interesting.
you could tell it is instead of the green hue, you have a yellow hue because obviously it's yellow. And so anyway, they get the medallion from the animated Lion King. They go back and she's practicing this spell which brings inanimate objects to life, and that's the next impressive bit of. There's two, where she's practicing it and she brings all of the clothes to life, and all of these empty clothes just start walking into the room. And it's like, I guess they must have painted these people in this stuff to make them look invisible. But it's like invisible people are walking in. And once again, it's really impressive when you consider that this is the 1970s, right? Like, where this is not today. And yada, 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 long story short, a group of Nazis end up showing up. And,
Whoa, that
yeah,
escalated
because
quickly.
the whole thing is this takes place during World War One. World War II, I mean. And so yeah, they're fighting off. So yeah, the Nazis show up and they're like, "Oh, we're not invading. This is not an invasion. This is just a practice thing to see if we can, and to show you that you should be scared of us." And the wizard or whatever, the witches get captured. And there's a thing with the guy where the kid's like, "Oh, you should be our daddy," and he freaks out. He's like, "No, I don't want. I don't know. Too much responsibility. Not right now. No, thank you. Bye." And he leaves. And yeah, he turns around. He comes back, and he there's this running gag where she has this spell and she turns him into a rabbit, turns himself into a rabbit, and gets the spell book and the medallion or whatever, and convinces her to try this spell to bring inanimate objects to life. And she does it and it works. And there's this the climax of it is she's fighting the Nazis she's brought all of these armor pieces to life. And it's all like medieval armor and whatnot. And sometimes it's like you could see it's just a helmet, like you can't see the face. And it's like, yeah, they're fighting the Nazis, and it's again really impressive looking because you're like, yeah, you can't. It's just they're just suits of armor. And then at the end, they manage to like distract her from channeling the spell, and you just see all of the armor just like lose life, and they all just fall over. And it's kind of an impressive feat, and it didn't get the respect it deserves because it got compared to Mary Poppins. And I can see the comparison. The ending is sort of weird because there's a bit at the end where the guy decides to stay. He's like, "I'm gonna be your dad now," and he stays. And then it ends with him going to war. He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to war now because it just makes sense to do that." And I'm like, really, 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 and then that's how the movie ends. But overall, yeah, it's just I was surprised. I was impressed by the special effects, and I was like, yeah, I really enjoyed this. This is really good. Totally
Cool.
worth checking out. Yeah. And then the next one I didn't watch was I am now completed. I have now seen every single one of George Lucas's movies because my second movie is, and this is where I said I'm going to probably fuck up the name, THX 1138 is what it's called. And to me, it's incredible. This is one of those movies and it's the same thing when I watched American Graffiti, where I went, I can't believe this guy made Star Wars because holy shit, what a piece of shit this movie. It just wasn't very. It's basically it's a dystopian. It's a by the numbers dystopian science fiction movie. So it takes place in the distant future. It's in a dystopia. It's run by robots, and all the people take pills, which suppresses their emotions. And the one guy breaks free from the system because for some reason his girlfriend or the roommate whom he lives with decides that she's gonna sabotage his medication. So he starts to feel emotion and he falls in love and they hook up. And that emotion causes him to fuck up his job, which then causes him to be sent to jail. And then
because emotions are bad.
Yeah, and then and then he escapes from that, and then it ends. Have you seen that sketch or the cutaway from Family Guy? Or I can't remember what the context of it was, but it was like, oh, that it's like that when I was in that dystopian future. and it just cuts and it's the girl's like, oh, we finally escaped from the corporation. We need to escape from the corporation. And then it pans over and you just see a bunch of robots that's supposed to be making fun of Logan's Run.
I don't specifically remember
Ah,
that one, but I
because that's
probably have
basically
seen
what
it.
this movie is. It's just like a bunch of generic, like like science fiction jargon where it's not explained especially well, and they're just saying sentences and words that don't really mean anything because it's
That's a made up word.
not some, yeah, it's a made up words, a made up phrase, like stuff like, oh, we have to detach the retiactivator to unhook the, you know what I mean, like that, where you're like, because I don't have a
Yeah.
frame of reference for how this
Star
world.
Trek stuff.
Yeah,
Star Trek
Star
talk.
Trekky jargon. Yeah, where it's like it washes over you because it doesn't mean anything. Where it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I guess this is bad. And all I could think about is like, wow, I can't believe he made Star Wars because this movie's bad. And I think I said that American Graffiti was also bad, and I said that was a similar thing. And to me, this movie was way more of a lesson to me. And again, you could really see the beginnings of what would become Star Wars in the sense of, oh, I see his style for science fiction. A lot of the visual similarities, and a lot of visual similarities to Star Wars in terms of like robots and like how the technology worked. But
Right.
it was the world itself, which is like, this is not engaging or interesting. It's so, there's just nothing about it for me that's engaging me, and I can't believe he wrote Star Wars. Like that's
Yeah, it sort of seems like he just kind of got lightning in the bottle with
he
that
got
one.
lucky. I mean, that's I think a joke I always made. It's a joke I stole from Randy Feltface, where it's like, can you imagine? Like he took him 3 tries to fucking nail it, and he never had to make another thing again. 3 tries. And the first 2 were
Yeah.
okay. They did okay. Like they didn't do great. But that third one, he never had to make another thing again, ever.
I mean, he
Can you
did,
imagine?
but he didn't need to.
He didn't need to. He didn't need to, but he did. He made the he made. Can you imagine
He,
making a thing and just
he
being like,
really
I nailed it. Never have to do another thing again for my life.
I would love for that to be the case. We should start writing something and then you can direct it.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, overall, I was just like, man, this is just a. I watched it yesterday and it was like, it was a struggle to sit through. It was just not very engaging. And it's like, yeah, again, Star Wars. Like, how could you? The characters are not engaging. It just wasn't. It just didn't do anything for me. So that was the stuff I didn't see. I will say, in regards to the stuff I didn't see, I'm gonna lump in Superman. I saw 3 things I didn't see. There was quite a number. I almost watched Death Wish, and then I snuck a peek at what the inciting incident of that movie was, and I was like, no, thank you. Or we could be talking about Last House on the Left. I didn't want to do that either. But that was
I almost
stuff.
did Gilligan's Island.
I almost picked Gilligan's Island. So let's move on to the stuff I have seen. I want to talk about some Charlie Brown because I watched 2 Charlie Brown movies. I watched Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown, and I watched Snoopy Come Home. And let's start with Snoopy Come Home because I got way more to say about Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown.
Snoopy.
Those movies are fun. They're fun. They're cute.
Snoopy.
And the thing that's kind of remarkable, that was remarkable about, I mean, the music is good. The music is good in all of them. And there was a lot of moments in it where I was like, oh my god, these characters are being dumb. But then I remembered they're kids. And it's like, they're kids. Of course they think this way. Like, it's like, why don't you just phone the hospital, Charlie Brown? And like, it's so funny because like, Charlie Brown is really, most of them are the story of a character who means well. He's a decent guy who like, yeah, maybe he complains a bit much about his circumstance in life, but he's a decent guy who wants to do well. And his friends are dicks. Like, they're all dicks. Like,
Especially Lucy.
especially Lucy. They're just so mean to him for no real reason. And I have some stuff to say about Peppermint Patty. Let me tell you. She's a sociopath. We'll get there.
Because children are cruel.
But and it's so funny because Snoopy.
I'm just saying, the leader of Bulgaria doesn't seem so wrong now, does he?
So there's a running gag in it where it's like, no dogs allowed, and it's like yeah, but I sort of feel like if I were a person and I was the one enforcing the no dogs allowed rule, if the dog walked up with an armful of beach equipment on 2 legs, I'd probably be like, "You're okay. You're cool. It's fine." Or or like, there's the bit where they're all or Charlie. Oh yeah, you could tell that this movie takes place in the 70s because Sally, Charlie Brown's sister, is constantly complains about. There's a moment where Charlie Brown drags her to the library, and she says she doesn't want to learn how to read because she wants to be a housewife. And it's like, that's how you know this is in the 70s. Um, but Snoopy is in there reading a book, and no one notices him walk in. He like takes a while to select a book off of the shelf, and he sits there and he starts to read it like way too loudly. He just is like laughing at it, and it's like, this is a dog who can read. Also, there's a running joke where he's writing letters like imperfectly, so he understands English. He can read, and he walks in too late. I sort of feel like you could just walk up to him and be like, "Dude, like, chill." Chill. It's okay. And also, I will say this: the thing about that started driving me crazy is, okay. I remember Snoopy Come Home being a weird fucking bummer as a kid. Like, that's the one thing I remember about it, was it was just a really bummer of a movie. And most of the movie, I
Yeah.
was like, oh, this isn't that much of a bummer. Why do I remember this being so much more of a bummer? And then it got to the end where it's like he's gonna leave. They think he's gonna leave and go live with the girl. It's like, oh yeah, okay. As a kid, I could see how this would be a bummer, but like as an adult, I'm like, he's obviously coming back. Like he's not gonna leave
Uh,
permanently. That's not how this is gonna end.
no, yeah. It's funny. I seem to remember reading or seeing a TikTok or something about that character, and that like this wasn't the first time she existed.
No, she comes back. She comes back in another thing.
No, I meant like from before.
Oh, from before that, I don't know, but I do know she comes back in another special, I think, or another movie.
Like where I don't know if it was like in like a history of a, but like yeah, you find out that like she used to own Snoopy, and then they moved to the no dogs
Yeah.
allowed part,
Well,
and that's why they had to get rid of her.
that's well, it's in the movie. That's a
So
plot point in the movie. Is he?
so I guess maybe this was like maybe this special's based on a comic run.
Oh, perhaps. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that's what's interesting about both of these movies. They're both very much made by Charles Schultz. They're made by the same people. The only people who are different, and it's also funny. This goes back to Mary Poppins. And Snoopy Come Home is the only one where the music is done by different people, and that one it's done by the Sherman Brothers.
Oh really?
Yeah. Oh, so you
Oh,
know the
that's
Sherman
funny.
Brothers by name. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah,
Uh,
because I watched that Saving Mr. Banks.
yeah. They did a bunch of stuff. They, I mean, they were Disney. They were pretty much with Disney. So they did Winnie the Pooh. They did Mary Poppins. They did a bunch of stuff in the '60s. They're quite well known. But so they did the music in Snoopy Come Home. Um,
That's funny.
and it's so funny because there's a character who she's just a complete psycho. The one who kidnaps Snoopy and then sings a little song to him, that da 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 da
Oh
da
yeah,
da da,
yeah,
and she
yeah.
just goes to her parents and is like, "Can I keep this stray dog?" And because it's the '70s, the
That
parents are like,
has
"All right."
that has tags, I assume.
No, I think he doesn't have the collar at that because he goes to this thing where he receives the letter from Lila to come see him, and he takes off, and he just hands the letter to Charlie Brown. Is like, so for most of the movie, Charlie Brown's just like, "Who's Lila?" And he's super bummed out because he's got this understanding of like Snoopy just takes off sometimes, and he'll take off and he'll come back, and Charlie Brown tries to do this like, I'm the parent here. I'm the authority figure. You do what I say. I gave you that collar with my hard-earned money. I put food on your table. You should respect me. And Snoopy takes off the collar and just hands it to him.
Uh,
As almost a means of being like, no, don't even bother.
that's
Um,
not how this works.
that's not how this works. And he's like, he's like, I hate when he does that. And then there's this whole sequence of this little girl like basically kidnapping Snoopy.
Snoopy.
What else did I have to say about Snoopy Comes Home? Oh, there's a sequence where Lucy and Snoopy fight, and Snoopy hits Lucy in the face entirely too much. Like maybe if Lucy had hit him a couple of times, I'd be like, all right, it's even. But no,
Oh,
it's all Snoopy dominating Lucy.
let's be fair. He's just physically dealing out what she emotionally has done to Charlie
To
Brown for
Charlie Brown.
years.
Yeah.
And Snoopy's getting his revenge.
Now, okay. I'm gonna talk about the adults in the Charlie Brown world in the next one.
Oh,
Um,
you'd be the first person.
because I need to talk about the adults in this universe. Now, they're some of the most negligent parents in the world. But okay, in Snoopy comes home, it's less egregious because, but also you're very much like they exist and they're there and they impact the world because Charlie Brown tells a story of his dad telling this anecdote about how he met his mom. And it's like, okay, so the adults exist in this world. We can't pretend that they don't. Let's talk about Risk for Your Life, Charlie Brown, because that movie drove me fucking crazy. So, I liked Snoopy Come Home. I liked Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown as a piece of my childhood. But as a kid, watching that movie. Okay, for those of you who haven't seen Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown, very basically, Charlie Brown goes to camp and he goes on a river rafting race with a bunch of kids at the camp. That's it. That's all you need to know.
And some bullies.
And yeah, a bunch of kids they're the kids from the camp. Um, and so, as a kid, I'm watching this and I'm like, yeah, Charlie Brown, stand up for yourself and like beat the bullies and win the race, right? Go Charlie Brown. But as an adult, I'm very much like, where are the fucking adults in this? Because George, to start off with, they take this pit stop they're on the bus. It starts off with one thing I really wanted to mention that's kind of interesting about both of these movies is how the voice cast doesn't get credited until the back half of the closing credits. So the opening credits, it shows all of the animators, all the producers, all the writers, all the people who did the music, all the adult people, but all the kids, when it's like, here's the cast, it's just the characters. So it's like, it's introducing Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Linus, all them. And it felt like blank as Charlie Brown. It's just Charlie Brown. So like the characters
I guess because
stand for
back then,
themselves.
I was gonna say, I guess because back then, at that point, the voices of the kids weren't really the point. It
No.
was the
Even
characters.
though they're different voices between the two ones I saw. But anyway, so immediately at the beginning of the movie, it starts off with they're on the bus. And they're all being shipped off to what sounds like a military camp. But they stop, and the kids... Snoopy's on a motorcycle. He's following them on a motorcycle, him in Woodstock. Also, fun fact about Snoopy Comes Home, first appearance of Woodstock. I learned that. I didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So yeah,
Neat.
so they stop at this pit stop, or whatever. Charlie Brown gets off the bus. I think all the kids get off the bus. And there's this conflict with this girl who with between Sally and this girl, and they all get back on the bus except for Charlie Brown, who's doing this monologue about how this summer he wants to learn leadership and how he wants to learn to be a better person and all this sort of stuff.
Hey, you forgot me.
Yeah, and the bus just takes off. And it's like, where's the adult? Did the adult driving the bus not do a head count to make sure that he was there? Oh, sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Brown. I'm sorry we lost your child. Like immediately.
Your bald-headed child who very much stands out in a crowd.
And then Charlie Brown gets on the motorcycle with Snoopy, and it's like, wait, the dog drives a motorcycle? We're not supposed to be questioning this stuff.
Where did the dog get the motorcycle?
Right?
Is my question.
My thing is like, there's so many bits in Snoopy Comes Home where Snoopy does something. Or Charlie Brown asks him a bunch of questions about where have you been? What have you been doing? What's up? And it's like Snoopy's kind of an ass. Especially in Snoopy Comes Home. Not so much in this one, but in Snoopy Comes Home, he's a fucking ass because he knows, understands, and can write English. He could tell Charlie Brown what's going on, and he actively chooses not to, like a prick. But anyway, so they go to this camp.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
They're all separated into tents, basically. All the girls go to one tent, all the boys go to another tent, and there's 3 bullies who are in a separate tent, and they're the camp champions, right? And this movie's only an hour and 20 minutes. Keep in mind, so there's not a lot of time to waste on shit. But there's this really long scene where and it's setting up a running bit that goes throughout it, which it's the bit where they all vote on everything.
Right.
Yeah, where they set up where Pepper and Patty like, we need to vote.
We vote the da da da
Yeah,
da 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 da
I
da.
nominate myself as leader, and then it's like she just de facto. It's like, yeah, this is why democracy fails, because she just kind of de facto is like, I nominate myself, and the vote, I'm in charge now. Um, and then so there's this running
And
gag that they keep.
meanwhile, the boys are like, no.
Right. And so yeah, the there's this competition that is basically two. It's oh, so sorry. So then they all, like, the boys are in this tent and they've got cots, basically. Like, they have cots, and the girls tent, they get beds, like full beds, for no reason. They get full beds for some reason. And so yeah, they do a series of challenges, and there's these bullies who are, like, openly cheating. Like, they're really obviously cheating. And it's like, again, where are the adults? Are there no refs? Is no one paying attention? Because, like, at one point they're doing a sack race, and the bullies, like, kick out the bottom, and they're just running, and it's like, is no one seeing this? Is
Do we,
am
do we
I
not have any
crazy?
camp? Do we not have any camp
Oh, they're
counselors?
not even. Yeah, so then they go to bed, and they're like, oh yeah, we have to wake up at 0500 hours. And they're like, what's 0500 hours? It's 5 a.m. What kind of camp is this that's making them wake up at 5 a.m.? What kind of psychopathic bullshit is this?
Sure sounds like a military camp.
Right? And so yeah, they do these challenges, and eventually leads up to this river raft race. And they're going down the river, and it's a multi-day trip that involves it's a multi-day trip, and it's an intended multi-day trip. And the boys, their raft is just on a bunch of tubes, and they've just got their sleeping bags on top, and that's it. And then the girls, they've got a little drape thing, and they've got some of their stuff in there. And then the bullies, they've got a motor powered boat. And it's like, apparently they're allowed to have it, despite the fact that everyone else is doing wind and paddle power. They're allowed to have a boat. But okay, whatever. And then they all.
This place sounds like a litigation nightmare.
I'm just saying. And so the bullies deflate the other tents. And there's only the three groups for some reason, but they deflate over the night. They all fill up and build their rafts, and then they go to bed, and then the race starts the next morning. And the bullies in the middle of the night deflate all of the good kids, the boys and the girls, boats. And it's kind of like, seriously, no adults. Did no one, like, they woke up the next morning and 2 out of 3 of them were mysteriously deflated? Like, really? Okay, whatever. And so then yeah, they're going on this river raft race, whatever, and they're sort of neck and neck, and the bullies are cheating. And at one point, the bullies divert them, and apparently no adults check the route of this river run, because they go past this one part, which is just a construction zone where they're just letting off explosives, and there's only one sign, and the bullies get rid of it. And I'm like, man, this is just, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, I'm sorry your kid got blown up, but
our 3 obviously delinquent hoodlum campers decided to murder your children.
Murder your children. And they do it more than once, where they just straight up try to kill them. And so then there's a storm, and all the kids like individually sort of get lost. And Snoopy crashes, and they lose Snoopy. And Snoopy camps for the night. He wakes up, and there's snow everywhere. And the boys are all looking for Snoopy or whatever. And they all manage to run into each other. Oh no! First the girls are like they vote, like, oh, should we go find the boys? And they all vote, and they decide to go find the boys because Sally wants to be with Linus. And they inadvertently they manage to find the boys, and the boys have found this cabin in the middle of the woods. And now they're together. They've decided that they should group together. And there's this really long sequence of them dancing, and they're having a good time, and they're having a party. And Peppermint Patty's like, okay, now it's time that we vote whether or not the boys have to sleep outside or not. And the
Even
boys
though
are
they
like,
found the place.
Even though they found the place. And the boys are like, what? And Peppermint's like, Chuck, it's a democracy. We have to vote on this to decide who gets to stay inside and who gets to go outside.
Who freezes to death outside and who gets to live?
Yeah, because it's snowy outside.
Yeah.
No, fuck you. Like, no, we're not gonna. And also, no, it's not a democracy, because if it was a democracy, then the boys would vote too, and the boys aren't voting. Only the girls are. Fuck you, no. And then the girls obviously all vote to kick the boys out, and the boys are like, fine. I'm like, no, what the fuck? No! And then
No, especially because this is the 70s, and no,
yeah,
no, I'm
no,
sorry,
fuck you.
no.
And so the boys all go outside. They all sleep outside. They make camp outside. Once again, it snows, and they wake up, and they're all like covered in snow. And it's like, oh well, they're dead. They just froze to death. Like they're dead. No,
They're
it's a
corpses.
cartoon. They're fine. It's fine. And so all the girls wake up, and they're all refreshed.
Family picture.
And and there's this whole thing where Peppermint Patty at one point like gave Charlie Brown shit about feeding them cold cereal, because that's all the food they had. And so later on, so the girls wake up and they're all refreshed from sleeping, and they go.
Why don't you have a warm breakfast?
Yeah, why don't you have warm breakfast?
Chuck?
And it's like, I'm sorry, Peppermint Patty's a fucking sociopath. She's a fucking sociopath. Like, are you kidding me?
She's certainly ungrateful.
And then Charlie Brown turns around like, how about you shut the fuck up and just eat what's there? You can either eat what we got or you can starve to death. Like, you could just fuck right off. And so then and then the whole movie is just a story of like Charlie Brown's friends all being mad, him doing his best, and his friends just being dicks to him. And so then they this long sequence of them camping or whatever ends, and they go back to the race, and the bullies have destroyed the boys' cart raft, and mostly destroy the girls. The girls have been sailed off into the water, which is now of course freezing. So they all go in the water and they try to catch it, and Charlie Brown's at the front and he misses, and the girls go for it. Peppermint Patty grabs it, and then they're just like, so do we vote? What we vote now whether or not to let the boys back in the boat? It's like, no, fuck! If it wasn't for the boys, you wouldn't have gotten the boat. You can go fuck yourself, you sociopath. And then just the rest of the movie is just them getting to the end of the race, and it's her constantly trying to undermine Chuck. It's like, Chuck, you need to be a leader. Chuck, you need to be a this. Chuck, you need to do that. Chuck, you're not doing this. And it's just her constantly and never-endingly emasculating Charlie Brown. And she does it in the previous one too, where she's like, she comes to take him on a date to the fair.
Beach.
No, it's the fair. The beach is with Snoopy, with Charlie Brown at the fair.
Right.
And she's like, you just need to get over your shit with Snoopy. I know he left you and you're really sad, but you just need to get over it, Chuck. I'm like, oh my god, she's a sociopath. Yeah. Oh my god, it was so and it's like, I get it. It's a kids movie. You're not supposed to think too. I'm gonna end this. I'm gonna end with my shit with the Snoopy movies by saying that I get it's for kids, but as an adult, I'm just like, where are the adults? Like, oh my god, where are the adults? Okay, so. That was Snoopy. I loved it. It was great. It was ultimately a great time. The music's so good. I found myself singing "Race for Your Life," Charlie Brown, like
Charlie Brown.
And then the other thing I watched the Muppet movie, and I watched the Muppet Show. I watched the first season and some of the second season, and the Muppet Show is so fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating because number one, the first season is incredible in seeing the origins of the Muppets. I'm gonna talk less about the movie than I am the show, because I got some stuff to say about the movie as it relates to the show. But the Muppet Show is it's so experimental in the sense that like
Phenomena.
Jim Henson and the people making that show just do whatever they want. Like they do, like there's so many things, there's so many sketches where it's just like it's a really long setup to one joke and it's a pun, or it's like it's not even a joke. Like there's so many bits where it's like it's just Ralph playing the piano, like that's all he's doing. Like there's one where he's singing a Disney song that I can't remember what it is to a puppy, and that's it. That's all he's doing. He's just singing a song to a puppy. There's a moment where they started to play, that song where it was like da da da. I think I posted the video of it where I was like, oh, that's the ice cream truck song. I also there's another bit in season 2 where they sing it again, and it has lyrics apparently. I didn't know it had lyrics. I learned that this week. But one of the more interesting things about it is how the characters themselves change. Like Kermit in season 1 is a dick. Like he's mean sometimes, just straight up mean. He's just a mean guy who's like a mean-spirited boss who just likes picking on his underlings. Sometimes he's nice, but other times he's really mean. And it's just really funny to see them figuring out the format and like there's certain puppets that every time for me, because I know the puppeteers, every time a different puppeteer picks up that puppet, it's a different character. Same puppet, but different character. A really great example of it is Miss Piggy and Janice. Miss Piggy and Janice. They do
For
she's
sure.
not that. She's got like 3 or 4 different voices, and it's not that. It doesn't become that until the Muppet movie, which is kind of wild. But every time she's a different character with a different voice. And it's the same thing with Piggy. She's for the most part the Miss Piggy that you know, where she's in love, she's really hyper aggressive, and she's into Kermit and all that stuff. But there's times where it's the same puppet, but it's a totally different character, and it's so interesting because that made me think of Kevin Clash would say that was obviously often, I should say, Jim Henson's method for creating characters was he would just give the puppet to a puppeteer, let them discover the character, which is how you were telling me about how Elmo, was a completely different character when he started
Absolutely.
off. And it's kind of like that. You can kind of see like the bits that work and the bits that don't work between as the show moves on. Like there's a recurring bit where the Muppets are just dancing, and it's just so they can say a stupid joke. And some of them are funny, some of them aren't.
I saw one pop up on my TikTok the other day where it was Big Bird comes to the
Yeah,
Muppet
yeah,
Show.
yeah. Well, it's
And
really
he's like,
funny.
I know Kermit from Sesame Street, and Miss Piggy's like, isn't that child friendly, that child
Yeah.
friendly
Well, what's really
show?
funny is the first season really rides the coattails of Sesame Street. Bert and Ernie show up in one episode as guest stars.
Oh yeah.
They straight up
Oh,
sing like 2 or 3 songs. There's sections where they're just singing songs from Sesame Street.
that's funny. I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah. So like, and I know that this was a big risk for Jim Henson. Like this was that point where he's trying to prove that the Muppets aren't strictly a children's show, and this show very much is trying to prove that. Like there's an episode where it's like there's this experimental Norwegian theater troupe, and they're doing really weird stuff, and it's like, yeah, this is weird and out there, and like there's a lot of he does a lot of stuff with black work where it's like, yeah, this is really, it's really out there, and he's really like experimental. It's like he just did whatever he wanted, and he didn't care whether or not it worked. And I respect it. I respect it because it's the purest form of theater, and it takes so much from vaudeville. Like there's so much vaudevillian humor. Like you've got good old school vaudevillian comedian actors like your Milton Berles and for your benefit, like Don Rickles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like your real old school like roast comedians where they would just say one-liners and one-line, like basically what Fozzie is. Fozzie is a good old school one-liner comedian that you just don't have. And so there's so many episodes where he teams up with these comedic actors, and it's like, oh, okay, that's where his kind of humor comes from. But what's funny is it's definitely a show where you're watching it where you're like, oh, do I know that celebrity guest star? And I'm at this point where I'm recognizing more of them than I don't.
Oh.
And it's fun, but it's interesting to see it become the Muppet movie, and it's very much like when I watched a bunch of behind the scenes stuff on the Muppet movie, where Jim Henson was basically like, the concept of the Muppet movie, of the Muppet Show, was you bring in the guest star into the Muppets world, and that's very much what it is. And what's interesting about the Muppets, more and more I noticed, is the Muppets themselves. Oh, there's also a really funny episode where Statler tries to get backstage to hook up with one of the guest stars, and it's just him trying to sneak backstage. It's quite funny. They're very funny. I enjoy them. But like not all of the Muppets are. I always thought that the Muppet Show, like in universe, was like they're putting on a TV show, but no, it's a theater show that they do each week. That's the
That
idea.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense when you think about the not the last one, but the one before, where they bought back their studio.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is there's a character. Obviously, Scooter, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He's got an uncle who I thought was going to remain an off-screen character, but he isn't. He very much shows up in the second season. He's a character who owns the theater, and so I don't know if they say in that movie if he sold it, but I'm guessing eventually he sold it. Is supposed to be the idea.
That's funny.
But yeah, very much the Muppet Show is like, I never sort of realized that. Yeah, it very much is a show about a show. So all the sketches are taking place on stage in the show. And yeah, there's times where the characters will come off stage and Kermit will be like, "Good job," and
Yeah, he's the stage manager.
yeah, he's the stage manager. No, and you actually see him manage the stage. And there's an episode where Kermit is sick, and so Fozzie has to take over for him. It's just chaos. And yeah, I was like, oh man, there's more of a narrative to this than I remembered it being more vignetted than it was. But no, there's very much a narrative in each episode, that a story that they're trying to tell, and an A plot and a B plot and a so yeah. So I that obviously I'm going to talk very briefly about the Muppet movie, the first one, because I love that movie. And there's just a lot of it I appreciated. I'm mostly just going to talk about, because I don't need to describe the Muppet movie. But there's some stuff in there that was really interesting. It's the first time there's a lot of celebrity cameos I now recognize, because I know movies now. So I was like, oh, hey, it's that guy. I recognize that guy. I always thought, you remember that bit where they run into Big Bird?
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was a reference to the movie.
It's not. That's what's funny. You thought it was a reference to Follow That Bird. It's not. It's not a reference to Follow That Bird. Follow That Bird came out afterwards.
Oh, really?
I know. It blew my mind. I was like, is that a reference? I actually had to look it up. And sure enough, yeah, it's not. Follow That Bird came out way later. So I'm guessing that scene must have influenced Follow That Bird. That image of him with the suitcase and walking must have had influence later on. That must have been where the idea came from, was that little bit.
Yeah, the origination of it. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, again, it's a technical marvel in terms of so is the Muppet Show. But all those Muppet movies are just technical marvels when it comes to what they do with those puppets.
I mean, even now it is.
Yeah. There's like good practical effects will make a movie hold up. And
absolutely.
The other thing I want to say about it, that was my favorite moment this time, was because it made it feel authentic, and that was at the end. The whole framing device of it is because, you know, like the Muppet Show is a show within a show, it's a movie within a movie. So the framing device is they're all watching the movie that they've made. That is the origin of how the Muppets began. And now that I've watched a bunch of the Muppet Show, it actually does feel like a believable origin. That's what's kind of funny, because the show, as much as it has all those background characters, the show's main characters are very much Kermit, Fozzie, Piggy, and Gonzo. And the band. The band is, in fact, there's an episode where the band threatens to quit because they want to change the theme song. And it's very funny to see the evolution of Dr. Teeth, for me as a puppet nerd, of him go from being a rod puppet where he's got thin, long arms to being a freehand puppet, which is how he plays the piano, which he's a freehand puppet now.
Right.
So they're actually playing the piano with him. And I always thought that I was like, oh, that's interesting. But no, that my favorite part of it is the end, because the framing device of it is they're all watching the movie that they've made. So the ending of the movie ends, and it's them in the theater, and it's like, what did you think? And then the ending credits is just them all talking amongst themselves, talking about the movie they just watched. Being like Frog. Kermit turns to Piggy and is like, oh, you were really good. And all the characters, oh, did you see my scene? I think that was my best scene. And it was like they're all like talking and engaging about the thing they just watched. And it makes those characters feel authentic. Like it's one of those things where the Muppets are crazy because they exist in our world. Right?
Yeah.
That movie
they're actors
in our world, and that to me that is a thing that you would do as an actor. You sit around and you talk, or even as a moviegoer, you sit around and you chat for a bit, and you socialize, and it made them feel like real people. And it's just as an adult, I appreciated that level of authenticity and artistry, and that level of thought. And it's so funny because people often talk about with the Muppets about like ruining the magic, and with Jim Henson, he was so unconcerned by that. Like, so much of him is him with Kermit, but he was so good at it, at hiding shit. It was so impressive.
Oh, if I was ever in the same room as Kermit, I would be looking into those little ping pong eyes, and he would be real to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I would talk to I mean, it's my favorite moment of and on the Muppet Show, often the guest stars have this moment, but my favorite moment is always that moment where the person is talking to a Muppet and they have that split moment where they realize they're talking to a puppet as though it's a real person. That's
the disconnect. Yeah.
They're always like, oh shit, he's not real. And then they quickly fold back in to the moment, and they start feeling the moment, and they continue to talk to him. But you can always see it. Like, there's a really funny one. I made a TikTok about it, but there's a really funny one where it's a guy, he's interviewing Jim Henson and Kermit, and he goes to put the microphone in front of Kermit, and you now can't hear him because the microphone's too far away from Jim Henson. So he puts the microphone back in front of Jim Henson, and then realizes, or sort of feels like he's being rude to Kermit because Kermit is talking. So he kind of does this thing where it's half in the middle and the audio's stuck. And it's like, no, put the mic to Jim Henson, man. He's the one making the sound. Like, that's really funny. They're really funny characters, and yeah, there's with the Muppet Show. It's a '70s show. There's a lot of, man, Jim Henson. If I've picked up anything from watching his stuff, is he was a southern hippy dippy of a man. Like, there's a lot of, like, he likes stuff from the South. There's a lot of southern music and stuff in the show. It's kind of remarkable. And there's a lot of times where it's like they do music from Disney, where I'm like, wait, that came out before this? Huh. I can't remember this. Oh, I think they sang When You Wish Upon a Star, maybe? No. I can't remember. But they sang a couple of Disney ones where I was like, oh, huh. But yeah, that's, I think that pretty much covers it for me. That's it. That's all. That's the book report. I think we should probably wrap up, Jordan.
I think so.
That was the
what terrible, awful, hard homework assignment are you giving me this week?
The assignment. The assignment.
To me and anyone who may or may not want to join us.
Okay, so the assignment this week is I want you to pick a famous director. And I want you to watch, ideally it's a director where you've seen at least some of their movies. And haven't seen others. Pick a famous director. Watch 2 that you've seen. Find something unique and different to say about it. And pick 2 more that you have seen or you haven't seen. And find something to say about that.
Okay, I'll have to think on that one.
You have to think about that one. So that's the assignment. Famous director, 4 movies, 2 you haven't seen. And only movies this week. Don't do TV shows. Don't be like me. That's for next week. Next week is famous directors. That's next week. In the meantime, wrapping up the show. If you want to get in contact with the show, as always, you can email the show at itsjustinsbusiness@gmail.ca. Shit, hold on. I've now realized I might have fucked this up. .com, yeah. It's justinsbusiness@gmail.com. If you want to contact the show, send show suggestions at the spot, you can do it. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, that is also a way to do it. If you want to just say hello, maybe one day if I get enough emails, we may read them on the show. Who knows? All I ask is that you don't be weird. I don't want any genitals. That's it. You can, if you want to find me other places. Oh, you can also, find us on Discord. I will put the Discord in the link of this video, so you can go there. You can leave suggestions there. You can interact there. If you want to follow me, I am on TikTok, which has been kind of barren right now because TikTok is a nightmare at the moment. But I'm on TikTok at Justin Spurr. Jordan, where are you?
I do Minecraft Mondays at Twitch, Zethgore187. Come check it out.
Yes, he will be there on Monday. You can come check that out. In the meantime, we should be back here next Sunday talking about some famous directors. In the meantime, we will see you next time.
See ya.